illegal leak to CNN.
What kind of consequence could the leaker face?
They should go to jail.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, the administration hinting the leak could have come from Capitol Hill, telling Fox News they will limit the sharing of classified documents with members of Congress. The president is on his way back to the U.S. from the NATO summit in the Netherlands, with an agreement from NATO allies to more than double their contributions to the alliance.
It's a monumental win for the United States because we were carrying much more than our fair share. It was quite unfair, actually.
Spain balking at the 5% GDP contributions. The president says he'll consider pressuring Madrid with higher import tariffs. Senate Democrat leader Chuck Schumer taken to the hospital today after feeling lightheaded. His staff says he was treated for dehydration and is back at work. Wall Street just before the close, the Dow down 107 points, NASDAQ up 61. America is listening to Fox News.
You ever try fixing your car and realize you're missing that one part? Yeah, been there. That's why eBay's my go-to. They've got millions of parts, guaranteed to fit. I'm talking brake pads for when yours have seen one too many miles of stop and go. Oil filters, because you don't mess around with your engine care. Even got this cold air intake on my watch list. I might just go for it. To keep the ride cool and your DIY streak hot. Find all the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. eBay. Things people love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Sometimes an identity threat is a ring of professional hackers. And sometimes it's an overworked accountant who forgot to encrypt their connection while sending bank details.
I need a coffee.
And you need LifeLock because your info is in endless places. It only takes one mistake to expose you to identity theft. LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code NEWS at LifeLock.com. Terms apply.
Air Comfort Service, heating, cooling, and insulation, weather.
The big old sinking dome of high pressure continues to be locked in over the eastern two-thirds of the nation, and we are right in it. Partly sunny, hot, and humid, maybe a pop late-day thunderstorm, 95 for the high. Tonight, partly cloudy, warm and humid, 76. Thursday, partly to mostly sunny, up to 97. Friday, same story, but we'll add a pop thunderstorm again Friday and 95. This is 97.1 FM Talk. Chief Meteorologist Dave Murray.
This hour of the Mark Reardon Show is sponsored by Gamma Tree Experts. Your trees deserve the best care. Call Gamma Tree Experts.
Mark Reardon. Government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem. Mark Reardon.
There's all these new words that are just meant to keep one person from disagreeing with another person's position.
And you have to be pithy. What do I mean by pithy? How about this? Republicans want to kill your kids.
This is the Mark Reardon Show.
It's so damn hot. Milk was a bad choice.
I feel like we're going to have that, and I won't do this realistically, but I feel like we're going to play that throughout the month of July into August and September. Although I see a little relief, upper 80s for next week and into the 4th of July. My wife and daughter are going to Summerfest in Milwaukee for the 4th of July. So I had Alexa look up the forecast for there. And this is what's crazy. You know what the high temperature like on the 3rd and 4th of July will be up there?
What?
78 degrees, which means at night at the concerts on the lakefront, which is it's a beautiful festival. It's wonderful. It'll be like hoodie weather. We don't get hoodie weather in the summer here in St. Louis ever.
But that's the trade-off for living in Wisconsin with all the snow, right? You
Yeah,
gotta
it's
have
not-
some positive.
It's not only the snow, as I always say, it's the snow is the snow. Actually, you make good use of the snow up there and they clear it very quickly because you pay so much in property taxes. But it just lingers in April, March, April, May, June,
That's
July.
depressing. I couldn't do it.
It is fun to get away from the heat, like up in Door County. A lot of St. Louis people go up there. I used to vacation up there quite a bit. All right, so we have a lot to get to here because Trump is in the Netherlands, and there was a pretty detailed ripping and an appropriate ripping, I think, of the legacy media. But look, I have to start with the Cardinals again because they won in dramatic fashion last night. And I missed the whole damn game. I was with a new client last night at dinner. It was a wonderful event. I get out, I turn the game on. It's 8-7 Cardinals, I think in the bottom of the 7th. But Ethan, you have to set up what happened here with Pete Crow Armstrong, because this was quite something. The play, I don't know, Sue, if you followed this and what happened, but it's interesting the way the Cardinals won this game.
Yeah, so back and forth game throughout. The Cardinals had a couple of big innings. I think the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, I believe it was. And at one point they were down 5-2. They ride the long ball back to the lead. So at this point, they're leading the game 7-5. There's a runner on second. That's Mason Wynn. There's one out in the inning. And Alec Burleson hits a deep fly ball to center field. Pete Crow Armstrong makes the catch. 2 outs in the inning. You would expect for Wynn to advance on a sacrifice fly from second to third. The problem was that Pete Crow Armstrong, the Chicago Cubs' darling player, is that he forgot that there were 2 outs.
So listen to the call here. Yeah, listen to the call.
Fly ball will hit center. Crow Armstrong back to the wall. He's got just enough room. Mason Wynn rounding third. PCA forgot how many outs there were. The front of the plate lane.
So what happened was he lackadaisically caught the ball and he kind of spun around and he's like, oh, I'm going to head in for the next inning. And then he realized relatively quickly, but with Mason Wynn's speed, yeah, that was a big oopsie. Now, I played a little of this for Audio Cut of the Day. I have to feature this again because John Gruden is in town, NFL coach, legend, if you will. A very, very big character. His nickname, of course, is Chucky, but here's his message to the fans of St. Louis.
A while back, I was in St. Louis, and the Cardinals were 14-19. So I got my rally necklace. I put it on my neck, and guess what? The Cardinals won 9 straight games, and now they're 43-36, 3.5 games out of first, and the Cubs are in town. And the first 20,000 fans, they get their own rally necklace. And we're going to put it on the Cubs, and we're going to close in on first place. So tomorrow night, I get to throw out the first pitch.
Tonight.
And the first 20,000 fans, they get their own rally necklace. Be there Wednesday night. If you're sitting behind home plate, have your head on a swivel because I could throw a rocket. It's a little off target. Love you guys. Can't wait to see you. Go Cardinals. Nolan Arenado.
Oh, we got to talk about Arenado last night because if you didn't see this, what happened was it's 8-7, and this is the only part of the game that I saw. Helsley, who makes me nervous all the time, he almost loads the bases, right? But there's this little short hop to Arenado at third. He has to one-hand it, and I can't remember who the Cubs batter was, but he just fires a rocket and ends the inning when it looked like the Cubs. It looks like the Cubs might at least tie the game and may even take the lead. And Arenado was just on fire with that, and they were so excited.
And not only did he make a great play, but he had to dodge the runner going from second to third,
right,
which could have interfered with him if he wasn't more careful.
And Mark, you said this earlier, and I'll repeat this. There's one player in Major League Baseball that's making that play.
I saw Mike Claiborne down the hall, and I asked him if there's one player. He goes, maybe two, maybe Manny Machado. But, man, that was a hell of a play. All right, so let's get to the leak. We have Kilmeade that's coming up here. Andrew Bailey, our Attorney General, is also going to join us in the studio at the bottom of the hour. We have a Wednesday edition of Sue's News and a bunch of other stuff like Gerry Baker from the Wall Street Journal. But the report on CNN from last night, and the New York Times ran with this as well, exclusive. Early U.S. intel assessment suggests strikes on Iran did not destroy nuclear sites, sources say. Now, I've made it very clear the last couple of days that I'd like to know exactly how much we did destroy, because I've heard this range from 3 months, they could get it going again, to 3 years, to 30 years. So I don't know what the real truth is. I think the Joint Chiefs chairs said, look, it's too early to know how deep the damage went. But of course, CNN goes right out of the chute with all their sources and their usual, the folks that we hear from on a regular basis. You're going to hear from some of them right now doing this reporting. So he's asked about this, and Rubio, they're all at this NATO summit, Peak Head 6. Here's Rubio talking about this.
This is what a leaker is telling you the intelligence says. That's the game these people play. We dropped 12 of the strongest bombs on the planet right down the hole in 2 places. Everything underneath that mountain is in bad shape. Now, anything in the world can be rebuilt, but now we know where it is. And if they try to rebuild it, we'll have options there as well. But all this leaker stuff, these leakers are professional stabbers.
Yeah, they're not happy about it. And they cited 7 different sources, but they were all anonymous in this report. So Hegseth got on board, the defense secretary, although Trump said, maybe we should call you the war secretary yesterday. I think he said that right, at least temporarily.
There's a reason the president calls out fake news for what it is. These pilots, these refuelers, these fighters, these air defenders, the skill and the courage it took to go into enemy territory flying 36 hours on behalf of the American people and the world to take out a nuclear program is beyond what anyone in this audience can fathom. And then the instinct of CNN, the instinct of the New York Times is to try to find a way to spin it for their own political reasons to try to hurt President Trump or our country. They don't care what the troops think. They don't care what the world thinks. They want to spin it to try to make him look bad based on a leak.
I want to make it clear. It is not illegitimate to ask the questions. It really isn't, because we want to know the answers. But I think it's a little too early, and this is what the administration is saying, to know all the answers. But again, they right out of the gate say, we didn't do much here and there's no success. So I think this is Kelly O'Donnell from NBC, because every time he called on someone today, like Aaron Burnett or someone from CNN, he'd say, oh, he does the same thing. Oh, here's a doozy. Wait till this question. So Kelly O'Donnell, and this is a bit of an extended answer from Trump, but he whoops up on him.
Disputing the report said what it said, even though it was initial.
The report said what it said, and it was fine. It was severe, they think, but they had no idea. They shouldn't have issued a report until they did, but we've gotten the information. I think Pete said it better than you can say it. And, you should be proud, especially you, should be proud of those pilots, and you shouldn't be trying to demean them.
No,
those pilots flew at great risk, a big chance that they've never come back home and see their husbands or their wives. Let me just tell you,
you can hear in the background saying no one is, debating the skill of the military.
BBC fake news, which is one of the worst, and CNN, New York Times, are all bad. They're sick. There's something wrong with them. You know what? You should be praising those people instead of trying to find some. By trying to go and get me, you're hurting those people. They were devastated. I got a call from Missouri, great state.
There we go.
And I won 3 times by a lot. And I got a call that the pilots and the people on the plane were devastated because they were trying to minimize the attack. And they all said it was hit. But we don't think it was really maybe hit that badly. And they were devastated. They put their lives on the line, and then they have, and I'm not referring to you, but real scum come out and write reports that are as negative as they could possibly be. It should be the opposite. You should make them heroes and heroines. You should make them really people that they were so devastated when they heard this news. And you know what they said? One of them, I spoke to one of them, said, "Sir, we hit the site. It was perfect. It was dead on," because they don't understand fake news, because they have a normal life, except they have to fly very big, very fast planes. But it's a shame. You should be making them heroes.
So look, this is what I addressed the other day when I was watching CNN. It was awkward to watch the CNN coverage Saturday night because they didn't want to praise. And look, you could over cheerlead. Did Fox over cheerlead here? There are legitimate questions about how devastating the strike would be. But again, the instinct, and I've been fooled too many times, and you, the audience, have been fooled too many times on these reports from CNN and the New York Times. So I appreciate the response on the part of the president. I have a great Scott Jennings clip on this topic that I don't have time to get to here in this first segment, but I do want to put Alfred Montgomery as the sheriff of St. Louis, right? They have the sheriff, they have the police chief, the sheriff deals with transportation to the prison, etc. But this guy, Alfred Montgomery, has been abusing his position. And Andrew Bailey, who will be in studio with us in about 15 minutes, is calling for his resignation. So the sheriff says,
Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey issued a public demand for my resignation by noon tomorrow. Not based on proven facts, not based on any court ruling, but on what's been described as widely published and disturbing allegations.
Well, I don't think there's any argument. There shouldn't be any argument that they are disturbing allegations. And we'll get into some of those when Andrew's here and cover some other topics. Look, big victory on the transgender topic last week at the Supreme Court, but he'll be with us in studio. Brian Kilmeade on a Wednesday afternoon for his weekly visit. He's coming up next.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
We've got some volume if you are leaving downtown. Westbound 64 is lined up really close to Kings Highway. It goes out through McCausland. And then we've got some moderate volume. There was an accident earlier near Ballas, so traffic a little slow there in both directions. 70 westbound looks great out of downtown. There is some volume out at Highway A through Wentzville. And you know what? Annie Fry asked me this question. How long is eastbound 5570 going to be closed on the Illinois side, obviously? And that would be between 255 and 159. And that is going to be through 5 a.m. on the 30th. So Illinois drivers, there is a slow go headed for that area right now, but it's only going to be through 5 a.m. on the 30th. This report is brought to you by Siding Express. Transform your home with the beauty and durability of James Hardie Siding. At Siding Express, they specialize in James Hardie siding installation. Visit sidingexpress.com today to schedule a free consultation. sidingexpress.com. I'm Sue Thomas. That's Traffic 97.1 FM Talk.
Well, the 30th is still Monday, right? So there's still quite a few. Can you believe July is almost here?
No.
Oh, my goodness. Well, let's talk
Crazy.
about June right now because Zero Res has a great special for you. I always mention sometimes on my people have subdivision boards for, Facebook pages, et cetera. They communicate back and forth. I do get a question every once in a while that people, shout out and say, hey, who's got a carpet cleaner they would recommend? I always chime in right away. Well, two things. Zero Res, professional carpet cleaners here in St. Louis. And then also mention my name, even though it might be uncomfortable for some of you to do. I don't always get the best response. But if you mention 97.1 FM Talk in my name, you get a great offer every month. We're going to update it next week, of course. This is a great summer sale right now. 3 rooms of carpet clean starting at $129. You have $75 off any whole home air duct cleaning package. It's a great offer if you want to get your home professionally clean. I think I mentioned this yesterday too. Some people, I think the instinct is, I want to get the carpets clean when I'm a dew point geek. When the dew point, the humidity is low because they'll dry quicker. But when you have your home all closed up, it's not a problem. These carpets, because they're so efficient, they dry very quickly. So even if you need something turned around particularly quickly, they can help you. And the process is safe for people, pets, and the planet. They have the legendary 30-day Gotta Love It guarantee. They have highly trained and background checked clean experts, techs that will, if you book an appointment with Zero Res right now, and then you do it again next year, you might have the same tech because they're loyal employees. So take advantage of the summer sale. 3 rooms starting at $129, $75 off your air duct cleaning package. You can go to ZeroResSTL.com or call 314-474-2020 today.
Your biggest choice in home restoration is, who do you trust with your home, your most valued asset? Few can match Banner Construction's experience and dedication to excellence. Banner is an elite preferred James Hardie contractor and Pella Window specialist. Restoration is a one-time opportunity to have Banner's design team show you architectural options to make your home the neighborhood showcase. Call for a free consultation, 314-569-1050. Now hiring qualified carpenters.
Annie Fry here. If you're nearing retirement or already retired, call my friends Thomas Helbig and Bob Kershaw with the Retirement Advisory Group. They'll show you how linking to the market is much safer than owning the market for your retirement savings. They are the official financial advisors of my show. Go to retirementkey.com.
Celebrate Independence Day with a free concert by the U.S. Air Force Band of Mid-America. July 2nd, 7 p.m. at Logan University in Chesterfield, showcasing patriotic music and more. Get free tickets at afbandtix.org. That's afbandtix.org.
You're listening to The Mark Reardon Show on 97.1 FM Talk.
Well, admittedly, the mayor's race in New York City, we didn't spend a whole lot of time on it in the past few weeks, but we did talk about it a little bit, and here we go. The communists won the race last night.
Tonight is his night. He deserved it. He won.
We have done it. I will be your Democratic nominee for the mayor of New York City.
Oh, my goodness. This guy is a piece of work. The first voice you heard there was Andrew Cuomo, who was, running for this Democratic nomination. Now, typically, like in St. Louis, if you win the Democratic nod, you're the next mayor. I don't know if that's going to hold true here. Brian Kilmeade is with us to weigh in, the co-host of Fox and Friends, the host of One Nation with Brian Kilmeade on Sundays, 9 p.m. St. Louis time. Brian, welcome back. How are you this week?
How's it going, Mark?
Good. So you get everything for free in New York City. You shouldn't complain. That's what this guy is promising, right?
Exactly, which is going to be great for me because I do want free food, and I do want to pay more money in my taxes. That's all things. I'm so tired of having money left over at the end of the month. This will get rid of that worry. What do I spend it on? Now I don't have to worry about that anymore because he says the 1% are ruining New York. Does he understand that they have a choice? It's called anywhere in America, including if you have to stay in New York, you don't have to live there. New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, all options. And rich people, you might say, well, they can afford it. Rich people got rich because they don't waste money. And they get resentful when people make them the bad guys.
Yeah,
and
they work
what
hard.
This guy ran on.
Right. And they work hard as well. Listen, just a sampling here of his positions.
And our police force should not be assisting
ICE, defund the NYPD, and refund all of these different social services. And I will create a network of city-owned grocery stores. It's like a public option for produce. I'll freeze the rent for millions of tenants, make buses fast and free, and deliver universal childcare. And before you ask, I'll pay for it by taxing the rich.
The mayor will use their power to reject Donald Trump's fascism.
So there are a lot of promises there, Brian. Now, as I indicated, conventional wisdom in any urban city in America is if you win the Democrat primary, you are the next mayor. Certainly happened here in St. Louis. But you do have Curtis Sliwa, who is the perennial candidate. And I guess Andrew Cuomo is kind of dabbling with going in as an independent, and then Eric Adams as well. So what do you think actually happens here? Because this guy has not had a ton of focus, certainly not nationally, maybe more so in New York City. Does he get exposed a little bit more here leading up to the general?
Mark, he's going to get blitzed. And there are people, Democrats, who are panicked because they thought, they can marginalize the squad, marginalize Crockett, and just say, we want the Rahm Emanuel types. We want to get Gavin Newsom to pretend to be a moderate, even pretend, with their revisiting pronouns. You have Mayor Pete. I'm taking the pronouns off, right? I'm growing a beard. We're going to not be repellent to men. We're not going to live off green energy and vilify America and support the burning of the flag. And then this guy comes up and he represents all those things. And he's got the AOC game plan, which is sneak up on an established Democratic candidate, have fantastic social media presence, have a good young team, get energy to knock on doors. All he needed was 400,000 votes in the thick, the most dense city, and I mean be stupid as well as a lot of people, the most dense city in America, and he got 400,000 votes. Cuomo got 367, and he gets the nomination. Now, the way I understand it, I'm not Mr. Ranked Choice voting, but he got such a substantial victory that nobody thinks that Cuomo's even got a shot in the next round, July 1st. And Cuomo, if he runs as independent, it's just been more humiliation because it only get worse for him. Adams says he got a ton of calls last night as he revitalized his career thanks to Trump. I don't know really what he did wrong. I think a lot of it is the Democrats targeted him like they targeted Trump. Biden lost his number. He was no longer welcome at the White House. The FBI took his phone. They never found anything except for maybe took some first-class seats from Turkey, and they tried to build an embassy, and he expedited contracts, but he never got proof he got paid money from those contracts. So having said all that, let's say he's not playing like the perfect game, but now he is somewhat of a left-of-center Democrat who I think got off to an uneven start, but better than de Blasio. And he said to me, I slept 90 minutes last night because he was on our couch today on Fox and Friends. And he now looks at, he used to just, I used to see him at the Al Smith dinner. And he's like, Brian, how you doing? Big fan. I go, can I get you on? Short, never answered my call, never followed up. Then as people said, it doesn't work for us to go on your network. No offense. I'm like, I'm offended. Now he is saying he's coming on. You know what he said at the end of his last visit 3 weeks ago? I'm going to be here regularly if you'll have me. So I go, does it hurt you? My last question, does it hurt you to have Donald Trump supporting you? And he said, I wanted everyone supporting me as possible. He played it kind of straight down the middle. I want to work with the president no matter where he is. I go, but the last president didn't. He goes, I know. So he's letting everybody know I seem more normal than ever. So he's got a legitimate shot. Curtis Sliwa, they say, if Cuomo stays in, Sliwa has a real edge because Cuomo takes some votes, Adams takes some votes, and then you got Modani takes some votes, and that leaves 28% could get you the victory, and there is 28% Republicans.
So what is the next step in all this? There's something next week, and then the general after that? I'm confused by that.
Democrat. Yeah, okay. It's Frank Choice voting, so it gives you a second chance. The way I understand it, it's why Brandon Johnson won, because he came in second among the Democratic primary. And when they did, and they got rid of the fringe and got rid of the bottom half, they did it again. And Brandon Johnson went from second to first. They say that Cuomo, and Cuomo knows it, is going to get beat bad, worse. And then do you say, okay, let me try the general? There's no indication as a general. He's washed up. I mean, I think, forget about 11 harassment claims. Forget about writing a book during the pandemic on how basically it should have said how to ruin the lives of as many people as possible. The retribution, all his stuff. I mean, this guy is the utter definition of defamed and disgraced.
He's walking in the footsteps, I would say, of Anthony Weiner, who tried and tried again, and we know his story. All right, Brian, I have to ask you, I just played some audio at the beginning of the show about the president at The Hague. They're not very happy with this leak story that CNN runs with last night. The New York Times picks it up. Rubio, Hegseth, Trump whoop up on the legacy media folks. Your thoughts on that from this morning? That got rather hot.
Well, look, let's just forget about what they said. Let's forget about what we now learned. We now know that the AP is reporting that Israel was on the ground, and they say that it's been devastated. How about we now know the IAEA and said the program's been knocked off, and they go into detail, at least 2 to 3 years at least. And how about the Israeli? So how about the fact that now we find out that the Defense Intelligence Agency says that we have this as the initial report. We know no one's on the ground. We're judging by satellite video, and we have low confidence in the conclusion. So if I got that, and I'm the editor of a newspaper, or if I am the general manager of a newsroom, and they said, well, this just in, my reporter got this story, I would say lead with low confidence, lead with it's one of 17 intelligence agencies, and if you want to write it and you want to say it, say it. But instead, they lead with it, not done as much damage as you thought, very little setback, only 2 to 3 months. Then they leave at the end. Most of these stories lead at the end and have at the end with slow confidence of this being it.
Of course.
Now, this is why Trump keeps a tight circle. This is why when he pushes back on intelligence in Helsinki, said next to Putin, because he goes, these guys are out to get me. At least Putin tells me he's out to get me.
Well,
this guy,
and he's not wrong. That's the thing. That's why these reports are suspect, because we've seen this, time and time again with the New York Times and with CBS, with NBC, et cetera. So that's why I found the response this morning appropriate. Now, how about this? I guess she's a vice mayor in this city outside of LA, in LA County, who's cheering on the gangs to fight against ICE.
And now that your hood's being invaded by the biggest gang there is, there ain't a peep out of you. Where you at? They're running amok all up on your street.
That was a post from last week. She took it down, but that's quite something, isn't it?
It is. Can you imagine that, calling on gangs to go after ICE, and you're vice mayor, so of a small town in Los Angeles? But believe me, that's the attitude. ICE is the problem. I mean, think about this. The Dodgers paid $1 million. Why? Why did the Dodgers pay $1 million to illegal immigrants? Because they're worried about the Hispanic crowd. Will you stop with the extortion? Stop with the threats. This woman's a criminal. Obviously, she's talking in her gang slang. So this is not something that she's new to. Either that or she's an actress, which I understand there's a lot of out-of-work actresses in Los Angeles, in the film industry. I just had to add one other thing about the previous comment. The Iranians said their program's been devastated. So wouldn't you lead with that story if you're CNN? And maybe say, by the way, the first intelligence agency with low confidence using satellite images said we might not have done as much damage as originally thought. So that's why Trump goes crazy. And by the way, it is, if you look at the satellite video, just us amateurs, the normal people can understand destruction. It looks like they nailed it, and it looks like they freaked the Iranians the heck out, because the Iranians want to talk now without any demands. This thing could have changed the whole the balance of power in the Middle East. At least acknowledge that.
Yeah, well, the instincts are otherwise, and that's why that was pointed out this morning. What's coming up on Sunday night? One Nation with Brian Kilmeade. It airs here 9 p.m. Central Time.
You know what? I'm still working on it. I don't know if these are going to be the two big stories, but I think I'm going to add the big, beautiful bill. And as another topic, Harvard and the government are working hard towards a remedy. I talked to Jay Johnson. He's joining Columbia today this week, the former Homeland Security Secretary for Barack Obama. He's working with Columbia. It looks like there could be an elite college detente with the administration, thinking about taking that on too. So we'll see what the major stories are. More than likely, this will be one of those shows which I got to do live, which is fine with me.
Well, it seems like these days every show you have to do live because things are changing so very quickly. Brian, great to catch up. Thank you. Have a great weekend, and we'll see the show on Sunday night.
All right, go get him.
Brian Kilmeade for his weekly visit. Hear him every morning here on 97.1 FM Talk. Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey is with us in studio coming up next.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
We do have some volume out there this afternoon. Eastbound 70 headed for Lindbergh. There was an accident earlier east of there. We also have got some volume on northbound 170 headed for 70. Now, elsewhere, it's not that bad. Let's say you're leaving downtown on 70. It looks fine. Little bit slow at K and at Wentzville. 64, that's lined up, but it's mainly moderate right now. Approaching Hampton out through McCausland. We've got some volume eastbound at Lindbergh. And then out west, it's just a little slow at Lake St. Louis Boulevard. Now, as far as 270 goes, it's moderate volume, but it is from Page down through Doherty Ferry. And boy, Manchester is jammed tonight at 141. That's in both directions. No delays really on the Poplar Street Bridge at this hour. Southbound 55 slowing at Bates. I'm Sue Thomas, and that's traffic on 97.1 FM Talk.
Maybe not as powerful a position as Kim Gardner as the circuit attorney. I wouldn't argue that. But the sheriff, Alfred Montgomery, who's been quite interesting in his short tenure, is being asked to step down by Andrew Bailey. He's refusing that, but we'll get into that story and some other things with Andrew in the studio coming up next.
You're listening to Leaf Filter Radio, and the guru of gutter protection himself, Chris Coonahan, is here to take your most pressing leaf-related questions.
Hey, everybody, Chris here. I understand we have Ron on the line. Ron, where are you calling from?
Uh-oh. Ron, are you calling from a ladder?
Well, I was. I wanted to ask Chris what I need to do to get my gutters ready to have leaf filter installed.
Oh, Ron, you don't have to do anything. A Leaf Filter Trusted Pro will come out and clean out your gutters, realign and seal your gutters, and install a Leaf Filter, America's #1 gutter protection system.
So I didn't need to get on this ladder?
Ron, Leaf Filter Trusted Pros are in your neighborhood and ready to help. Just visit leaffilter.com/radio to schedule your free gutter inspection and get up to 30% off.
Thank goodness. What was that site?
That's leaffilter.com/radio for your free gutter inspection today. See representative for warranty details. Promotion is 20% off plus a 10% senior or military discount. One discount per household.
Another RX Watch, brought to you by Onder Law. There's an evil new twist in the tragic story of baby powder and its link to ovarian cancer. Recently uncovered documents reveal that talc can contain asbestos.
The same asbestos that we know causes mesothelioma.
Right, and ovarian cancer.
In the 1970s, the industry wrote its own rules, allowing Johnson & Johnson to claim that its talc was asbestos-free, as long as it contained less than 1% asbestos.
Of course, Johnson & Johnson helped write those rules. So while we're using hazmat suits to remove the asbestos from our homes, Johnson & Johnson was telling women it's safe for their bodies.
Unbelievable. So if you've used talcum powder for feminine hygiene and contracted ovarian cancer, call Onder Law at 1-800-RX-WATCH.
They've already won several large verdicts against Johnson & Johnson for women just like you.
Call Onder Law at 1-800-RX-WATCH. That's 1-800-RX-WATCH or go to rxwatch.com.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements.
It's time for a $98 AC tune-up.
This portion of the show is sponsored by Jerry Kelly Heating and Air. We have a Wednesday edition of Sue's News coming up in the next hour. I have a few things I want to toss out at 4 o'clock, as we often do. You know, we have this food thing. Fred has discovered some unique foods, Sue, and he has brought them to the table. We were going to do that today, but we were thinking because Jane's going to be here on Friday, we might hold off because she's like the good source for sampling and taste tests and stuff like that.
And we use the term food loosely. in
this case, I think we do. Yesterday, I had Mike Kehoe on the phone talking about a bunch of different things, including the special session and everything that went on there. And, you know, we have tornado relief. That was certainly something that affected Missouri. We have the Attorney General on today. It's a big week here for state officials, Andrew Bailey. But here's the difference. He's with us in the studio this afternoon, Andrew, and I appreciate you coming to see me in person. How are you?
Hey, doing well, Mark. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for having me in studio.
I did mention this to the governor last night. You know, you guys were both so great in February to host me. I came up to Jeff City. You showed me around your office and the building, and the governor, took some time with me. I was thinking about that this week because I can't believe that was that many months ago. It was February.
It was cold then.
It was very cold. Now, it was a snowstorm day, remember?
That's right. Yeah, but when are you coming back? That's my question.
Well, I would love to get back. I know how busy you are, so let's talk about some of these things. Let me play the audio here. I don't think you have headphones on, but I think you know what Alfred Montgomery has said. And you're asking for him to resign, the sheriff of St. Louis. Here's his defiant response.
Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey issued a public demand for my resignation by noon tomorrow. Not based on proven facts, not based on any court ruling, but on what's been described as widely published and disturbing allegations.
Well, there are disturbing allegations, but he's being defiant.
I was elected by the people of the city of St. Louis to serve as their sheriff, and I intend to honor that commitment. I will continue to do my duties as the sheriff and protecting the courts. Thank you.
All right, so there he is, Andrew. Now, this guy has been accused of so many different things. I will say this, I criticized the Post-Dispatch, but Joe Holloman at the Post has been pretty good at exposing a lot of this. By the way, the best defense that I've seen from a member of the Board of Aldermen, Rasheen Aldred, says, I don't know that it rises to the level that the state needs to step in and tell him to resign. I mean, he didn't steal money or anything. That's the best defense that they have.
Wow.
But essentially, he kind of has stolen resources, hasn't he?
Oh, absolutely. And look, this level of defiance, I mean, we heard the same thing from Kim Gardner
Sure.
after he filed the same lawsuit against her, right? And then days after she was thundering from the pulpit, she hit the eject button and was gone. We're going to see the same thing happen here. We have 6 credible allegations backed up by facts, evidence, more than 80 pages in our petition that we filed at 12:01 p.m. today.
Oh, gosh.
More than 140 individually numbered paragraphs that outline all of the facts and all of the evidence. And it's all evidence that we are in possession of, that we will put on a trial if we have to get to that point. But look, let me say this as well. If you notice what he didn't say at his press conference yesterday, he never denied all of the allegations that are in the public domain. That's consciousness of guilt. Number 2, he's admitted to most of them in his social media posts and in his interviews. He has conceded all of these points, his own words, his own statements against interest, which get a higher level of veracity imputed to them in court, work against him and prove the allegations. So at the end of the day, it is time for him to go so we can restore the rule of law in the public corruption. And the people of St. Louis deserve faith and confidence in the institutions of public government. As long as he's in office, that can't happen.
You know, it's amazing to me that people are trying to defend this, but I guess that's the pattern here in St. Louis. But in your mind, because he has been investigated for ordering the handcuffing of a jail official, he rolled, this is my favorite, he rolled golden dice on one deputy to say, you're going to have your job or you're not going to have your job. He has had a deputy pick up his kids from school. He bought a nice SUV for himself as well. $12,000 worth of golf carts. Now they were used. I give him credit on that one. $28,000 in new badges. So for you, is it a culmination of everything, or is there something that really jumps out and inspired you to get involved in this particular situation?
Any one of the claims we've raised individually warrants his removal from office, but the cumulative effect creates a timeline that we have to move this quickly. It's time for him to go. Let's talk about that illegal arrest. The sheriff of St. Louis City does not perform normal law enforcement functions like 114 other sheriffs in the state of Missouri. They are explicitly prohibited in section 57.450 to not enforce the criminal code of the state of Missouri.
I knew it was that number, by the way. I knew that number off the top of my head.
But the point is, it's not that just that he's exceeded the scope of his authority. He's violating the statutes that restrict his authority. When you're cuffing a jail administrator who's tasked with keeping the inmates safe and keeping us safe from the inmates, he is interfering with the administration of justice, committing a felonious restraint kidnapping, and putting the rest of his at risk. Not only is it illegal, but it is worse because of the individual that he cuffed. Let's go to the other instance in which he arrested an individual, a licensed security guard whom he disarmed in violation of that individual's constitutional right to keep and bear arms, who was performing a licensed security guard function in the city of St. Louis. I mean, again, this guy is detrimental to the criminal justice system and public safety in St. Louis.
So what's the process? He does not resign today at noon. He's being defied. He held the press conference yesterday. Some members, the wacky members of the board, are sort of, I think they're even a little challenged on defending him. So what's the process now?
So we filed the writ of quo warranto. That's the removal lawsuit. It's pending. You know, I anticipate that all the judges here in the city of St. Louis, and rightfully, will recuse themselves. The Missouri Supreme Court will be tasked with appointing a new judge to preside over the case. And we have a petition pending right now. Not only our 6-count petition, but we've got a proposed order requesting the judge to sign for immediate removal, where he will be sidelined and removed from office. And
who gets put in? Who gets put in?
Well, that's a great question. Yeah, and so there's a couple things there. Number one, I think the court would likely identify a point of contact that they can use, because the courts depend on the sheriff's office to assist them in the administration of justice and secure the courthouse and their courtrooms. But number two, This has been a legal dispute that we adjudicated in St. Louis County when Wesley Bell was elected to Congress, and Sam Page said he gets to appoint pursuant to the county charter. And Governor Parson and I said, no, there's a state statute on the books. We litigated that and we won. And what the court said there is, I think, relevant. But I would defer to Governor Kehoe, and I've been in constant contact with Governor Kehoe's office, and I'm certain that he's in constant contact with the mayor, and we won't get to that point of litigation. And an appropriate appointing authority will be identified who will appoint a successor to Sheriff Montgomery.
Yeah, like I can't remember if the mayor was quoted in here, but I'm guessing she thinks. Do you know independently if she thinks it's time for him to go? I would think so.
Well, look, I mean, the mayor's busy trying to recover St. Louis from not only years of neglect, but from tornado. And how dare this sheriff, interfere and create all these distractions and problems when the city is on the precipice of some really great forward progress and needs that time to recover.
Yesterday was I think it was the 53rd anniversary of Title IX. And I was not here last week to comment on this, but we, of course, covered in grand detail, not only with you, but Jamie Reed, the whistleblower from Washington Children's Hospital, this transgender issue in the Supreme Court. What a victory for you, for Missouri, for the country on that topic last week with the Supremes, Andrew.
Yeah, and Mark, you've been on this story from day one, and I applaud your work on this, illuminating this for the public and your listening audience. Missouri led the way. Jamie Reed came forward and started a national conversation. My office launched a first of its kind multi-agency investigation, called for the moratorium, promulgated a rule just to try to inject some kind of sanity to prevent the administration of these powerful chemicals that are harming kids, irreversible surgeries that would deny them the ability to ever enjoy the full spectrum of adulthood, stop the gender mutilation. Ultimately, the General Assembly passed Senate Bill 49. My office successfully defended that statute at the trial court level against constitutional challenge. To date, we're the only state that successfully defended a statute like that at the trial court level. Supreme Court comes down last week and says, look, states have a rational basis to protect kids from gender mutilation. It is not sex-based discrimination to say you can't harm kids by administering dangerous drugs that have no proven validity to work to cure what they purport to.
It was such a no-brainer and common sense. But now you have a situation, I don't know if you followed this, California, a judge has ruled that California violated the civil rights of female students by allowing trans athletes to compete. So that's sort of a separate but related type issue. Yeah. But I read this story in the LA Times this morning, and the response by the officials who are defending it is really just comical. It says, the school board president out there said that the department's finding does not protect women and girls. It harms them. That barring transgender students from participating in sports based on the president of the United States deciding who is woman enough is both discriminatory and unjust. Look, this is, as I've said, not an 80-20 issue. It's a 90-10 issue. Overwhelming numbers of Democrats, even Gavin Newsom has had to admit this. So, but that's not something Missouri's involved in. In that case, does that have to eventually go to the Supreme Court as well?
If it does, we'll be prepared to offer support. Yeah.
Yeah.
And look, at the end of the day, celebrating that 50-year anniversary of Title IX, that is a major landmark civil rights piece of legislation to protect women.
That's the whole point.
Protect the whole point. And how dare these activist clowns try to erase womanhood from our vocabulary, from very existence. And that's what they're trying to do by inverting the language. It's not the president who has declared this. It's the people's elected representatives in Congress 50 years ago. And the president's just supporting what the law says.
I was amazed. And it's been so busy. And I was out last week, as I indicated. I did a couple of weeks ago cover like this little battle between Riley Gaines and Simone Biles. And I don't know if you followed that, but Simone Biles, I guess, deleted her X page because she comes out and she swiped at Riley Gaines and she lost that battle altogether. And she lost a lot of support because of her position on that. She tried to apologize, but that indicates to me how popular our side of this equation really is in all of this.
Yeah, the worm has turned, and it's really turned in the last 24, 28 months, I would say. And again, Missouri was leading the nation in that conversation, and I'm proud of the work we've done, and I appreciate you covering it.
Jamie Reed was so important because I had been talking about this issue well before anything happened with the whistleblower report, but that really vindicated a lot of what some of us were saying. One other issue before I let you go is you're calling for third-party content moderators when it comes to social media. What is that all about, and how would that work?
There's an unprecedented, historically unprecedented consolidation and concentration of power in Silicon Valley, where they hold a monopoly over the algorithms that censor speech on big tech social media platforms. President Trump has our lawsuit ended the vast censorship regime emanating from the federal government, but we still have to worry about corporate censorship. That it's more pernicious than at any point in human history, because when King George shut down the printing press in the colonies, he was stifling 1 form of speech, the written word, and the whole world knew he had done it. But when big tech social media oligarchs turn the dials and deplatform, de-emphasize, shadow ban you, it's not only your First Amendment right to speech that's violated, but your listeners who want to hear from your audience. And it's a multi-dimensional form of speech, body language, images, written, spoken word. And so we've got to fight back. The way to do that is to break up the monopoly. And we're not telling the big tech social media platforms how they should curate the feeds. That would be a violation of their First Amendment rights as identified in the net choice decision that came down last June from the United States Supreme Court.
But you're saying they need to have someone that does that.
Consumers options. Let me choose. If I want the
Yeah.
NRA to moderate the content, to feed me information that I like because my values align with them, or if I want the Catholic Church to do that, then I should have those options. And if I want PETA or some left-wing organization do it, then our colleagues on the other side can do that as well. But the point is, it enhances the consumer experience, and so it's a consumer protection issue. It's an antitrust issue, and it's the best way we have to build a wall around our right to free speech.
So
on big tech.
is this a specific Missouri issue, or is this another one of those things where a bunch of states are involved?
This is a Missouri thing.
Okay.
So we are the first governmental entity to my knowledge, in the world that has proposed this kind of drastic action. And again, we're not violating the big tech social media First Amendment rights as identified in the net choice decisions. I always see these brilliant legal minds who have never actually read our proposed rule opining that we're running afoul of the net choice decision, when I question whether they've read either one.
Likely not.
Yeah, likely not. And the point is, like, look, we're not telling them how to curate their feeds. We're just telling them to give us the opportunity to select who we want to curate our feeds.
And what is the process then on that?
So the rule has been promulgated. It'll go into effect here in the coming days. I'm certain that the big tech social media companies will likely want to litigate that issue and our authority to promulgate that rule. But in 2015, the Missouri Supreme Court handed down a decision that said that the Attorney General's office has broad consumer protection authority to promulgate rules to protect against exactly this sort of thing, against this kind of concentration of power that harms consumers.
Excellent. Great to see you, Andrew Bailey. Hopefully this is not revealing too much, because we know each other a little bit, and every once in a while I get a text message. I got a great text message a couple of Fridays ago, because I think you were listening to the Reardon Roundtable on that day. That's must listen to radio. Even the Attorney General of Missouri agrees with that. Great to see you in person. Thanks for swinging by. I appreciate it. Keep us posted on all this.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
Watch out for an accident. Eastbound 70, a little bit past 141. They've got the right lanes blocked through there, and traffic is stacked up behind it. We've got a real jam going both directions at westbound 6440 and eastbound at 141 tonight, like worse than usual. And westbound 64, we have a jam that starts near Kings Highway. Accident reported, and this was pretty close to McCausland. That may be the cause. We've got heavy traffic westbound on the McKinley Bridge tonight as well. And on the Illinois side, of course, we've got 5570 eastbound remaining closed between 255 and 159. That will be until 5 a.m. on Monday. This report brought to you by Lakeside Renovation and Design. For over 25 years, they've been St. Louis's trusted choice for transforming homes inside and out. Windows, siding, kitchens, baths, outdoor spaces. They deliver quality craftsmanship backed by lifetime warranties. Visit lakesiderd.com to start your dream project today. I'm Sue Thomas. That's Traffic 97.1 FM Talk.
I have shared this story before. My mom and dad moved into an independent living and assisted living facility many years ago. It was tough because they had been in a house for 3 decades. Change is not always easy. But here in Missouri, we have the first incarnation of New Perspective Senior Living. It's a company that's in other states. They're based in Minnesota. New Perspective opened up in Weldon Spring late last summer, last fall. And they have really been proving transitions aren't just smooth, they're beautiful, and they can be beautiful. It's a brand new senior living community. It feels more like a resort than a residence. It is top-notch, first class. But it's not only that, it's the team that surrounds you to make you feel like you're part of maybe a new family. So whether you're looking for independent living, assisted living, they have a memory care facility. They have an AI fall detection system that is awesome. But they give you, maybe your mom and dad, maybe a sister or brother, the freedom to live the life that you want and that you love with the right support that's there all the time. You get beautiful apartments, amazing dining, lots of activities, and a team at New Perspective that really is focused on helping every resident live life on purpose. Don't take my word for it. Head out for a tour. If you're ready to see how beautiful a fresh start can be, they would love to show you around New Perspective. You can set up an appointment today at 636-229-1111. The website has everything you need. NP, N as in Nancy, P as in Paul, npseniorliving.com. New Perspective Senior Living in Weldon Spring.
It's motorcycle season in St. Louis. Time to ride. When the road gets rough and you're injured in an accident, you need someone who's got your back. You need Kaufman Townsley. We're local, we know St. Louis, and we don't settle unless it's what's best for you. When it's not, we go to trial, and we bring decades of experience with us. Kaufman Townsley, real people, real results. Call 314-500-5000. That's 314-500-5000.
Hi, this is Steve Butts with the Crawford Butts Insurance Agency. I know we're all experiencing sticker shock when you get your insurance premium. Now more than ever, you need an independent insurance agent to find the best value for your family's insurance needs. Crawford Butts, family owned and operated for more than 60 years. Please give us a call at 314-752-2500 or at crawfordbutts.com.
Protect your liver and give it the support that it deserves by making Active Liver from New Nordic part of your daily wellness routine. Find Active Liver in stores at your local CVS, Meijer Grocery, or online at Amazon or NewNordicUSA.com.
The Annie Fry Show.
We are making progress. This does not feel to me like a weapons of mass destruction Iraq situation, an engagement in a perpetual war. This doesn't feel like that to me.
Weekdays from noon to 3.
Every day I get to the end of the show and, we do this feature audio cut of the day, and I sometimes don't get to play a lot of the gems, and sometimes I tell Ethan and Fred, hey, let's put that in the next day. And I even have some stuff, so I referred to Riley Gaines. I have some really good Riley Gaines audio from yesterday that I never got to. But in the open, I was going to run this from Scott Jennings on CNN last night. I've been watching a lot more of that live just because, after the Cardinals game, I'm tuning into CNN. Their audience is still very, very small, but Scott's doing a great job with the panel. And last night he had Neera Tanden on. He called her the queen of the auto pen. She has worked in a couple of different administrations. And there are these questions about how much Trump knows about the particulars of the military operation and how effective that they were. But when he spikes the ball on CNN, he really spikes the ball. And this was the conversation from last night.
Really kind of disturbing thing on basic information. On some political issue, I totally understand. I can even understand perhaps plausible deniability about Signalgate. But I think on national security issues, like issues where soldiers are possibly lost, it is pretty inexcusable that he has not been briefed and he can't speak to it.
And what's worse, a president not having all the information he needs to make a legitimate comment, so he holds back in the moment before being ready to make a comment, or, I don't know, willfully lying to the American people about the condition of the President of the United States, which went on for 4 years in this country by all of your colleagues.
That is totally wrong.
Okay, so I'm going to play a little bit more of this, but what's interesting is they had a hearing yesterday, and that woman right there, as Jennings calls her, the queen of the auto pen, Neera Tanden, was testifying before the Oversight Committee, and she says she was authorized to use the auto pen. So there are some, particular legal questions about whether they can go after those particular, signatures and overturn them. I think that's a little cloudy out there right now. But she seems to want to deny that Biden was competent and cognizant enough to even make the decisions.
Wrong. That is totally wrong.
I hope you read all the books that are coming out. I hope you read all the books that are coming out.
Joe Biden, when asked about soldiers lost, was briefed and said it. And so you think Joe Biden had problems? At least he was able to do that. What's the excuse for Donald Trump if he's so capable?
I'm just saying.
I mean,
you guys
I don't
are
know if you're a
upset
judge.
that Trump is exhibiting some, I want to get more facts, and I'm going to be lectured by the people who lied to the American people about the condition of the president.
Oh my God.
No way.
No, but
not going to take
that's first of all, that's outrageous.
Is
That's
it?
outrageous. Yes, it is.
You
I
think
did
the
not
truth was
lie.
told? You think the truth was told?
See, these are very valid questions. And he referenced the book. Obviously, Scott's writing a book as well. It's not going to come out until later this year. Selena Zito's book comes out, I think, in 2 weeks. But, you have two people in Alex Thompson and Jake Tapper, three people, because David Zweig's book, An Abundance of Caution, really goes into some of the lies that were told on the COVID front. So you have a lot of COVID lies. I still think that that's being undercovered, which is why I mention David all the time. But it's not even in dispute how out of it this former president was and had no idea what the hell he was doing for all this time, raising the question, who the hell was running the country? They want to move past that. I'm sorry. Jim Comer and the Oversight Committee, they don't want to move past. I don't want to move past that because there are a lot of things happening right now that deserve attention, but that deserves attention. And one thing we know is if this were the case with Donald Trump, and I hope it doesn't get to the point where he does not have the ability to be mentally competent because they want to, cite his age. He's showing no signs of that right now, but they want to act. And CNN wants to act like this never even happened.
I will say,
Did the White House tell the truth?
I will look forward to this discussion.
Do you all believe the truth was told about Biden?
Scott, do you want government or do you want your lick back? Because even if all of that happened in the past, we're in the present now. So we need a president that is capable.
And so what? He said, I don't know. What did it hurt your life that he said, I don't know?
Biden did it. Biden did it.
Sure,
Biden
I
did
can.
it. But you
Of
cannot
course I
ride
can.
that for 4 years.
I absolutely can.
The country to move
I
forward.
100% can.
You cannot.
Biden wrote it for 4 years on Trump, and Obama wrote it for 8 years on George W. Bush. You're damn right.
There you go. That's the part I wanted to get in there. And there's no doubt about that. They did. They went to George W. Bush, time and time again. Now, I'm not, this could be decided or determined to be whataboutism. But I think it's fair when they're picking around the edges on Trump for simply not knowing a piece of information, when Joe Biden didn't even know what was happening around him. And one of the things I think we've learned this week, look, these guys have, stood strong. Hegseth and Rubio, and even if you want to go to Scott Bessent and some of the other members of the cabinet, they have been very strong around the president, and the communication level has been unbelievable. We had KJP that went up there how many times? Time and time again, lying to the American people. Now she's got her own book coming out. It's ridiculous. It deserves attention. Neera Tanden, I love that he calls her the queen of the auto pen. That was weak last night, and congratulations once again to Mr. Jennings for spiking the ball. We got a Wednesday edition of Sue's News just around the corner.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
Crews are still on the scene of this accident. It's eastbound 70 past 141. They've got the right lanes and the right shoulder blocked. There is an overturned vehicle involved. Eastbound traffic is a parking lot jam back across the Blanchette Bridge. Now, westbound 70, a little bit slow at Jennings Station Road and a little bit at 141 as they slow to look at the action there. Southbound 270, slow pocket south of Page, and that goes down through Doherty Ferry. 44 is slowing at 270. Westbound Manchester is really jammed right at 141 tonight. Southbound 55, slow in the construction zone as you head on down toward Bates. And if you are headed into Illinois, it's so much better than it was yesterday. We don't really have any major issues at this hour, but there's a little bit of volume headed for the 70 split. I'm Sue Thomas, and that's traffic on 97.1 FM Talk.
Brought to you by Amazon.
This Prime Day, July 8th through the 11th, you can get a great deal on a new foot spa, transforming you into the queen of kicking it.
Wait, this has bubble jets. Okay.
Shop great deals this Prime Day, July 8th through the 11th.
I can give rave reviews to the team at Michael's Flooring Outlet because they did a great job on turned into 3 flooring projects. My daughter's room, a guest room, and then we did something downstairs that basically the bunny and the bunny hutch has taken over. We took some carpeting out of a small part, but they did a great job last fall, and I would highly recommend the team because of the level of customer service. But they also have lots of options for you, and some of this depends on lifestyle. We'll talk about some great products like Mohawk, Smart Strand Mohawk Silk. If you want carpeting, that's known for silky softness, superior performance. The technology in flooring has come so far. That particular product has 3 times more fibers than an ordinary nylon carpet. Each strand of Mohawk silk is packed with 700 silk-like stain-resistant fibers. Now, I've gotten a little away from carpeting because of pets and children, so you can go to something like Revwood Select and Plus, a 10-year waterproof warranty. Revwood Plus is Wet Protect waterproof wood. GenuEdge steam cleanable. Techwood is another product. Ultrawood. You can install that yourself. They have options at 3 locations. IGotFloor.com, Michael's Flooring Outlet.
KFTK FM Florissant from the Kaufman Townsley St. Louis's Injury Lawyers Studio. Call 314-500-5000.
That's 314-500-5000.
All on the free Odyssey app.
The president says there's more proof Iran's nuclear sites were obliterated. On Jack Callahan, Fox News, pushing back strongly on media reports, citing leaked preliminary intelligence assessments that attempted to minimize the damage done in U.S. airstrikes.
He said, without maligning his own intelligence officials, that leaked document did not paint an accurate picture. And moreover, he thinks the Iranians did not get much uranium out of there.
I believe it was total obliteration. I believe they didn't have a chance to get anything out because we acted fast.
The president also said 2 Iranians went down to see it, called back and said this place is gone. And he also said the Israelis are doing a report on it now, concurring with the description of total obliteration.
Fox's Jackie Heinrich, the FBI now trying to learn who leaked the intel, and Fox's Peter Ducey adds.
The White House is hinting that they think the leak came from Capitol Hill because we are also now told the White House is going to start limiting the classified information that they share with lawmakers as a direct result of this leak 24 hours ago.
Classified briefings for members of Congress on the U.S. airstrikes postponed earlier this week will now be held tomorrow and Friday. The president's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, says there will be talks with Iran next week, saying he is hopeful for a comprehensive peace agreement, and there is a strong sense that Iran is ready. President Trump's headed home from the NATO summit meeting in the Netherlands, which he says was a big win for the U.S.
Major focus of our conversations at the summit was the need for other NATO members to take up the burden of the defense of Europe, and that included the financial burden.
The NATO allies agreeing to increase their spending on their mutual defense from 2% to 5% of their gross domestic product. On Wall Street, the Dow closed down 106 points today. NASDAQ gained 61. America is listening to Fox News.
There's nothing like when you get that part from eBay and it just fits. Yeah, the first time. So you can do less of this and get right back to more of this. At eBay, you'll find all the parts you need, guaranteed to fit, at prices you'll love. Sounds good, doesn't it? eBay, things people love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
The doctor's office that accidentally mixed up your files has your social security number. The power company that mistakenly cut your service has your payment info. And the hotel that lost your reservation has your passport number. You need LifeLock because your personal info is in endless places that can expose you to identity thieves. LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points every second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Save up to 40% with promo code NEWS at LifeLock.com. Terms apply.
Air Comfort Service, heating, cooling, and insulation. Weather.
The big old sinking dome of high pressure continues to be locked in over the eastern 2/3 of the nation, and we are right in it. Partly sunny, hot, and humid, maybe a pop late-day thunderstorm. 95 for the high. Tonight, partly cloudy, warm and humid, 76. Thursday, partly to mostly sunny, up to 97. Friday, same story, but we'll add a pop thunderstorm again Friday, and 95. This is 97.1 FM Talk. Chief Meteorologist Dave Murray.
Why do the national tax resolution firms need the tiny fine print at the bottom of all their TV ads? Hi, this is Lance Story with the Lance Story Law Firm. You don't hear fast-talking disclaimers in our ads because the claims we make are 100% transparent. The Lance Story Law Firm primarily focuses on one thing, IRS problems, and we're regulated by the Bar Association, and we have a AAA rating with the Better Business Bureau. IRS issues are serious legal issues. The Lance Story Law Firm has helped thousands of clients navigate the best resolution plans, and we tell you up front exactly how much it'll cost. Tax resolution law is all we do. So before you send money to some out-of-town, high-pressure salesperson, give us a call at the Land Story Law Firm, located right here in St. Louis. Call today to schedule your free consultation with me, 314-260-6120, or visit LanceDruryLaw.com.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements.
Summer in St. Louis means one thing: Cardinals baseball. It's more than a game. It's an STL tradition. The crack of the bat, the roar of the crowd, the boom of the fireworks. It's the soundtrack to summer for Cardinals Nation. So grab your cap and glove and take your spot in the stands, because in St. Louis, baseball is more than a melody. It's our favorite song.
This is Victor Scott II, and there's something for everyone at Busch Stadium. Meet us at the ballpark on Sunday, July 13th, as the Cardinals take on the Braves. 20,000 fans, ages 16 and up, will score a slick retro warm-up jersey courtesy of Mercy. And 10,000 kids 15 and under can grab a one-of-a-kind Cardinals basketball thanks to the Pasta House Company. It's fun for the whole family. Don't miss it. Get tickets at cardinals.com/promotion. St. Louis Cardinals for the Lou.
This hour of the Mark Reardon Show is sponsored by Gamma Tree Experts. Your trees deserve the best care. Call Gamma Tree Experts. A well-meaning man with a terrific memory. This is Mark Reardon on 97.1.
I always like playing that one like once a month because it's so inaccurate. It's like the most fake news. I don't come up with some of these, but this is what I think about that one.
You are fake news.
Especially the memory part. I can't remember what happened yesterday. I will tell you that. Hey, John Morosky has been a great contributor to this show over the years on a variety of topics, and he works over at Real Clear. Real Clear Politics, which I mention all the time. People say to me sometimes, what are your sites that you go to? And I go to a lot, and I subscribe to a lot. But I always recommend, and this is for, I don't care what side of politics you're on. If you're on the left, if you're a libertarian, if you're in the middle, if you're on the right, Real Clear is awesome because it just compiles opinion pieces and news from across the country. So if you just want to kind of start your day with Real Clear Politics, you can see all kinds of stories covered from both perspectives or from a variety of perspectives. But John is on the Real Clear investigation side, and he's exposed a lot of the nonsense that's gone on the trans issues, on college campuses, et cetera. And I don't know if you've noticed, guys, but you probably have. It's Pride weekend coming up here in St. Louis. So all the streets are shut down. It's a big deal. The Pride flag basically flies as high as the American flag. I did take note, though, at the memorial across the street, they do not have the Pride flag this year, and they had it last year, which I think I support. But he's got a new report, and I want to get him on either tomorrow or the next day. You know who has really, or what group has really taken on this, Pride Month banner, if you will, and run with it in disgusting ways, are public libraries. And they have, as he has really outlined in this latest report, book displays featuring queer-themed titles written for all ages, from like toddlers to teens and adults. They go into North Carolina in Wake County, and this is what he says: civil servants are not just a benign celebration of gay dignity, hugging couples and gay families, which basically I thought was Pride Month. That's what it was all about, right? Acceptance and all that. I don't have any problem with that. I don't know why they have an entire month. I don't know why they have a huge event downtown. I certainly don't know why there is a Pride Disability Night at Busch Stadium. That one stuck out, if you will, from the weekend. But he goes to 23 libraries in just this one county and says in his report that Pride Month has matured into a national political event that celebrates cross-dressing, drag queens, kink, BDSM, which is bondage, domination, poppers, recreational drugs used at sex clubs. Here's my favorite, and I can't even pronounce the word. I think it's mash lanya. You know what that is? You guys know what that is?
Nope.
Mashalanya, armpit fetish. Yeah. Polyamory, consensual non-monogamy, solo polyamory, don't even ask, he says, and other declarations of the flesh. That's what's happening at public libraries. This is why, by the way, when the Post-Dispatch and others try to do stories on what's happening, usually it's in St. Charles County, about libraries, they always say that there's, book banning and stuff. It's not book banning. It's the same way that my daughter, who's 10 years old, can't go into her school and Google and have access to everything that's out there on the internet, because there should be, we as parents should have controls, but schools have to have limitations as well. But these public libraries have just gone way lefty on some of this stuff. And his report in Real Clear Investigations is quite stunning. And I hope to get him on the air here in the next couple of days. Sue's News is coming up here in a bit. You know, usually on Wednesdays, Sue, as you know, our friend Alex Rich visits with us. He's about to get married this Saturday. He couldn't come in because he's busy preparing for the wedding, but I am going to get him on a little bit later in the hour, about 4:45, because I want to touch base just quickly. Plus, I kind of have a funny story that you guys will not be surprised about when it comes to Alex's wedding, which I am attending this weekend. The other thing that I was going to share a couple of days ago, and I was reminded of this just driving in today. One of my pet peeves on the roads is when people follow too closely.
Oh, yeah.
When they tailgate. Now, there's two types of people that do this, in my opinion. There's the type that they're trying to be aggressive and move you out of the way. And look, I drive relatively quickly. If I'm in the left lane and I'm being aware, if I see someone coming up on me, well, I'm going to try to get over if I can, if they're going faster than me.
Okay.
But some people think that the best way to attack that is not to give a little space, but to just get right up on your ass, right?
Yeah.
That does not end up well for the person behind me, and oftentimes.
Well, anybody, it's very dangerous.
It is dangerous. But here, I have to tell you a story, because I was driving my daughter, and our neighbor is helping take care of my daughter during the summer a little bit. And we were taking them to this place where that's one of those climbing gyms or whatever they're called.
Oh, yeah.
This one is in Sunset Hills. But anyway, Amanda's 15 and she has her permit. She doesn't have her license. She's going to be 16 this summer. So just last week, I was I was offering advice on driving, and I was talking about how you really need to give space between one car or the other. And it's amazing to me, and I saw someone do this today, where they were just driving on 44. It wasn't in the left lane. It didn't look like someone who was trying to send a message, hey, get over. It was just someone following way too closely. Now, I remember and we're all old enough to remember that you had driver education in high school. At least I did. Did you, Fred?
Yeah.
Stephanie Smith and I, because of alphabetical.
Look at that. So
Come on.
What was the rule? The rule is if you're driving and you can't see the front tires of the other car behind you, they're following too closely, right?
Yeah, I can't remember the specifics, but yeah.
But generally, that's pretty good rule.
Yeah.
So we left my house going to this climb. I forget the name of it. I can't remember what it is. But Amanda was in the front seat. Alexa was in the back. We're on this little road where I live, and we have to go out the other way by Paradise Valley because of Hillsborough Road being closed. And I had just had this conversation like a week ago about following too closely. And lo and behold, and this is how quickly it can happen. There's a place where I pass by every day that has firewood, and they chop up the wood, and there's trucks that deliver or pick up the wood as well. So I noticed that there was somebody on the fence that was kind of leaned over, and they had a flashlight or something. I don't even know what it was. I was just distracted for a moment because I'm looking at that guy, and all of a sudden the car in front of me slams on the brakes because the truck in front of that person decides to hit the brakes and back up into the parking lot of this guy who has firewood. But I mean, it was one of those, but for the grace of God. And here I am trying to coach this kid as a young driver, warning her about following too closely. And I wasn't following too closely.
Thank goodness.
But if I was, I guarantee you I would have hammered the person in front of me.
Yeah.
Then the other concern became the person behind me, because then the first thing you do is you look in your rearview mirror, and luckily there was space. But I have the technology. I think a lot of the cars have this right now where it'll beep at you. Yeah. But I mean, I had to hit the brakes, and I had to hit the brakes fast. And I will admit that I was a little distracted because of the person that was standing on the fence. I don't even know who the person was. I don't think they worked at that business, but it's a good lesson. And it's amazing to me how many people do not follow that rule, where they follow way too closely. So I just wanted to share that briefly here before Sue's News, which is coming up on a Wednesday edition next.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
There is an accident on eastbound 70 really close to 141. And this one does involve an overturned vehicle. And we've got we don't have it, but the actual right lanes and the right shoulder are blocked by emergency vehicles and police. And we've got a jam behind it, and it's pretty slow. In fact, this thing is creeping back toward 94. Now, westbound 70 is okay in that area. It's a little slow. Southbound 270, mainly moderate volume from Olive down through Doherty Ferry. 44 westbound is slowing at 270. And out west, 70, there's some moderate volume, Highway A through Wentzville. Moderate volume on 64 from Highway N out through the 70 split. Not bad on the Illinois side. It looks pretty good over there. This report brought to you by New Perspective Senior Living. New Perspective Weldon Spring is redefining senior living. They've got modern apartments, delicious meals, entertainment, activities, even a state-of-the-art AI fall detection system. Visit npseniorliving.com to schedule a tour today. I'm Sue Thomas with traffic on 97.1 FM Talk. If you are a person who has wondered if you have saved enough for retirement, you are not alone, because we all know to do that. Save for retirement, okay. Save as much as you possibly can. But do you know the inside workings of everything? No, you know to save, but do you know any more than that? Like, how do you reduce your taxes? How do you make the most of Social Security? This is why I like this idea. It's a 3-hour adult education class called Retirement Planning 101. It's just one night. It's taught by a fiduciary advisor from Financial and Tax Architects. Now, they hold these at colleges and libraries throughout St. Louis for free, but they want you to bring 3 canned goods for St. Louis Crisis Nursery. You have to register, so call 314-947-2012 and kind of get a better understanding of what's happening. 314-947-2012.
Another RX Watch, brought to you by Onder Law.
Welcome back to RX Watch. This alert is disturbing.
Right. A while back, we learned that companies like Johnson & Johnson use a mineral called talc in baby powder and other products.
And studies show that talc, when used for feminine hygiene, can cause ovarian cancer.
Now listen to this. RX Watch has learned that the talc they use is being mined in China.
Right, and talc mined in China contains heavy metal contaminants like chromium and magnesium, which are known to cause cancer. But China doesn't care.
So China gets the jobs and we get contaminated talc in our baby powder.
And ovarian cancer.
Right. With their specialized tests, the medical team at Onder Law can help you know if your ovarian cancer was caused by talc.
Onder Law has helped women for years with free and confidential consultation. You need to call Onder Law's pharma attorneys at 1-800-RX-WATCH.
Call Onder Law at 1-800-RX-WATCH.
That's 1-800-RX-WATCH, or go to rxwatch.com.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements.
College holds a mythic place in American culture, but there are stories you won't hear on the campus tours.
The higher-ups are concerned about one thing, and that is avoiding scandal.
I'm Margot Gray. On the new podcast, Campus Files, we cover everything from rigged admissions to the drama of Greek life and student protests. Listen to and follow Campus Files, an Odyssey original podcast. Available now on the free Odyssey app and wherever you get your podcasts.
You can't write this. It's all real. You're listening to The Mark Reardon Show.
Take it back to Saturday.
Well, that meteor rabble-rouser, former Fox 2 reporter Elliott Davis is going to join us at the bottom of the hour. I mentioned earlier also Alex Rich often joins on Wednesday afternoons. His wedding, his long-awaited wedding, is this weekend. And I just want to share a quick story about that. And Alex is going to jump on with us after Elliott in the next half hour. Right now, we got to do this afternoon.
These allegations are deeply concerning.
Does the president have any comment?
We're not going to comment.
It's not clear messaging.
No.
And now, Sue's News. Brought to you by Sue.
Today is National Parchment Day, National Strawberry Parfait Day, and National Catfish Day.
Well, I like some good catfish every once in a while.
I don't know that I do. What does it taste?
Well, you fry it. I mean, you can fry anything and make it taste good. I like fried catfish, like a catfish sandwich or something like that. I used to fish, for a lot of different types of fish, but used to fish for catfish long back in the day. I used to like to cook it up, Sue.
What about you, Fred?
I'm embarrassed to say, I don't think I can really tell the difference between a lot of different fishes.
Okay, the catfish you can because it's got that whisker
Well,
thing.
yeah,
he
right.
means the
See it,
taste,
but-
right?
Yeah, it tastes
yeah.
nice.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
I'm with you on that.
Well, when it's fried, yeah. I mean, sometimes you
Right.
can't. You put a
Ethan?
little sauce on it or whatever.
I like all fish.
I would say out of all the fishies to eat,
Yes.
catfish is probably towards the bottom
Yeah,
for me. Just
I'm with
because
you.
frying stuff is just like you said, it's good because it's fried. Is basically the reason that I just heard. I think there's a lot of fish out there that taste better for different reasons.
Hey, can we go back to National Parchment Day, though? Because I'm very curious about that one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you want to write on parchment, I think that's what they're talking
Fred,
about.
you still do that?
Oh yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I write our whole show on parchment.
By the way, the
with a ink with a dip a pen
A
that
feather.
I
fountain
Yes,
pen
yes,
or a
yeah.
feather?
a quill.
Sure.
Sue, are you doing any
Quill.
birthdays later?
No.
Okay, I have to highlight one thing for my daughter
Please
because
do.
today is Benson Boone's birthday.
Oh.
And he's kind of broken out as one of the big artists with young people in particular. He was on American Idol. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago. He ditched out of American Idol after making the top 24 and decided to make a run on his own. He's been immensely successful. But Alexa's going to see him at Summerfest in Milwaukee next weekend. And she points out it's Benson Boone's birthday today. He's only like
Question.
23.
Does he have a unfortunate mustache?
He does
Yes.
a little
Okay.
bit.
Then
Yes.
I do know who he is.
I don't get that. I don't get any of the
Yes.
unfortunate mustache. Look, that's not just a younger person thing either.
Oh no, it is not.
Do you understand it?
no.
Because far be
what's
it for
an
me to judge a
unfortunate
man.
No, I don't.
mustache? Just a bad one?
It's
Well-
it's not full.
Yeah, it's pretty
not that
light.
That's it's
It's
yeah, it's
pretty
skinnier.
light.
It's like the skinnier ones,
It
right?
does not do him any favors.
Yeah, he's
No,
a good-looking guy.
I
Is that a
agree.
Tom Selleck mustache?
No, like you had a Tom Selleck mustache, Fred, for
Oh,
years. You
did
did
he?
it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, big bushy
Yeah.
mustache. These are a little bit more thin.
Yeah, and I'd say if it goes with your face and it makes you look good, okay, whatever works. This is not a.
I've yet to see someone with a modern mustache look good. That's just
Okay,
me.
well,
But I'm,
agree
again, I'm
with
not the
that.
one that matters really,
That's
especially
fair.
if you're heterosexual.
Well, I guess we could focus on National Strawberry Parfait Day, which actually sounds good to me. Okay, now we are going to play a little bit of audio, Mark. She said, giving him a heads up.
I got it here.
32 years ago today, in 1993, this movie came out starring Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan.
Something must be missing if Jonah still feels that you're under a cloud. And just a few questions. Are you sleeping at night?
He doesn't sleep at all.
How do you know that?
I live here, Dad.
Look, it's Christmas. Maggie, my wife, she really did it. And she loved she made everything beautiful.
I've never gone back and watched that movie
What?
in modern.
You
no,
have to watch
in
it.
modern times. So you don't have
Yeah.
gone back.
Oh,
I've done a lot of
it's so
70s and 80s
good.
movies,
Yes.
but the scene with that's Rob Reiner's mother, who is in the. Can we just say the orgasm scene? Can we just call it as
wait,
it is?
that's not in this
Oh,
movie.
that's when Harry Met Sally, isn't it?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
See, I'm confusing my Tom Hanks movies a little bit too.
It's easy to do. This one is the Meg Ryan, and this is where Rita Wilson retells the story of a movie back in she
Is
got
she the
hit by
wife
the
then?
taxi, and she's the wife of a friend in this movie.
Okay.
Anyway, you should all watch it.
Well,
It's a good.
I don't remember it because I haven't gone back and watched it.
Yeah.
I've probably only seen that movie once, maybe twice.
I've never even heard of it.
It's a classic.
Young
it would be a
man.
classic.
What's it called?
Sleepless in Seattle.
Oh, I'm going to Seattle next week.
It's a romantic movie.
It is.
Ethan,
Okay.
you and your wife probably would love it.
Yes.
Okay,
Oh,
all right.
yeah.
I
you-
love Tom Hanks, so can't
right?
go wrong with it.
I think you'll love it. And I threw this in because what? 26 years ago, in 1999, after 4 failed marriages, Jean-Claude Van Damme remarried his third wife, Gladys, making her wife number 3 and wife number 5. And they are now celebrating their 26th anniversary of their second attempt at marriage today.
I find it interesting that her name is Gladys.
Well,
Can I just say that?
And I can't pronounce it. It's Gladys Partavima. And so that's why she's just Gladys.
She was marriage number 3
And number
marriage number
5.
5. That reminds me of Trump 45 and 47. That's where that reminds me.
Yeah,
of.
well, there you go. Okay, now and again, we see lists of things that older people did that kids will never have to do, like Ethan here, like loading film into a camera.
Mhm.
Remember, that was
Oh,
a
yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Did you ever have to do that at all, Ethan?
Nope.
Yep.
And programming a VCR.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, one I hadn't thought of is covered by Nate. Is it Bargatze?
Bargatze.
Yeah, listen to this. It kind of made me laugh.
Okay, this is a long clip. Are we going to play the whole thing here?
Well, see
All right,
how it
let's see what
goes.
happens.
When I first started going on the road, I would have to do a wake-up call. That's how I got up in the morning. I'd have to call a guy I don't know and just be like, will you wake me up tomorrow? That's the last person I would talk to was him. I would call my wife, then a man I've never seen. You promise you gonna wake me up tomorrow? We would tell each other good night. So no one's done a wake-up call in probably 20 years now. So there's a guy on the road with us. He's 24 years old. He's never done a wake-up call in his life. And so we were staying at a hotel, and he saw a wake-up call on the phone. And he goes, I'm going to do a wake-up call. And I told him, I go, don't do it. That's like an ashtray on an airplane.
True.
But he was like, no, I want to do it. All right. So he set it up. Next morning, his phone rings. He doesn't answer the phone. He doesn't know that's the main part of your job. You got to answer the phone and let the guy know you're awake. So then that guy, who's young too probably, is like, I guess I got to go knock on the door. So he goes up and he starts knocking on the door. But he still doesn't answer the door. So the guy goes in the room.
Oh,
I swear this is real. Because look, this is two young people that don't know what they're doing. So he goes in the room like, do I have to touch this guy? But he had to touch him. I swear. That's what he told me. He woke up to another guy going, hey, buddy. It's time to wake up.
That is all. So that was worth playing.
laugh.
That was worth playing for sure. Nate,
buddy.
has really been a mentor, if you will, and a compatriot, maybe not even a mentor, but really worked a lot and promoted Greg Warren, our great comedian from St. Louis, who has a new special on Nate's channel. And we just had Greg on a few weeks ago. But that's a funny bit.
Come
and,
on.
there you have an example of comedy that doesn't, even though I'm fond of profanity, doesn't have profanity, just tells a story, a relatable story. And that's awesome. That was really good.
It's two young people. They don't know what they're doing. All right, there is a new report out on America's most trusted brands, and it weighed the reputation of thousands of brands. We're talking about restaurants, groceries, household products. But what's interesting is they broke it down by generation. So what are we, by the way? Fred, what are you? Are you a boomer? I think you are.
I think I am.
Okay,
yeah.
for you, the most trusted brand is Kleenex. Followed by Dawn dish soap, UPS, Tylenol, and Band-Aid. All right, Gen
That makes
X.
sense, though.
It
That's
does
us.
kind of
Gen-
make sense.
we're Gen X.
Yeah, we're Gen X.
I've
Okay.
used all of those in the past week.
See, there you go. You're very brand loyal.
Yeah.
I
For
bet
Gen-
Tylenol's not going to be in the next one.
For Gen X, the most trusted brand is Dawn dish soap, which I do have at my house.
I do too.
Oh my
I never waver from Dawn.
Right.
You know why?
It takes
grease out of your way. Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Followed by Oral-B, Hershey's, Band-Aid, and Duracell.
I don't get the Oral-B one.
Yeah, it was a big toothbrush with the dentist back in the day.
No, I know that, but that's okay.
Okay, what about Ethan? Are you Z?
Yes.
The most trusted brand for Z is YouTube.
That tells you
Isn't that
something.
bizarre?
That is bizarre.
Followed by Band-Aid, Dawn dish soap, Costco, and Google.
Multi-generational run here for Dawn dish soap.
I mean, how did they get to the
pretty
kids?
close.
And Band-Aid.
No kidding, yeah.
And you know why? Because
Yeah.
Band-Aids are stuck
Stuck
on you. I mean, if you think about all that marketing, and I still look at these insurance companies these days, like Progressive and the funny commercials, they're not for those of us who already have insurance. They're for younger people who will end up getting insurance. I'm totally convinced of that.
By the way, if you're a millennial, your most trusted brand is Google, followed by PayPal, YouTube, and Dawn dish soap.
Oh
Dawn,
my God.
running the tables
No
with
kidding.
Dawn.
Listen, but
Multi-generational.
Those poor people trust the United Postal Service. None
Well,
of the rest of
I
us
got a lot
do.
to learn there.
Sorry about that. And finally, in Sue's news, we have today's random fact. Orcas are natural predators of moose. Moose can actually swim slightly fast, so they dive for food, and every now and then a whale will get them.
Wow.
And that's it for today's random fact.
You know, we had
crazy.
You remember Norm McCrade, who used to come in from Canada with the All Canada show?
yeah.
He would tell me, because we would talk hunting, and a moose is the only animal that you will hunt that if you miss them or if you anger, they'll come after you as well. But the orca, I guess, wins that battle in those instances. Elliott Davis is coming up right after the break. Hey, we're also going to talk about Alex Rich's wedding coming up as well.
I'm Chad Robinson with Your Money Now. Last week, the average interest rate for 30-year fixed-rate mortgages increased to 6.88% from 6.84%, according to the Mortgage Bankers Association. Rates have moved in a roughly 25 basis point range, just around and below 7% since early April. Bumble shares rallied more than 26% today after the dating app company revealed in a securities filing that it does intend to cut 30% of its workforce. The layoffs will result in upwards of $18 million in charges for the company. A huge swath of Americans feel under pressure to earn the big bucks simply to keep pace with the rising cost of living, according to a new survey. A Bankrate poll found that nearly half of respondents think they need to earn at least $100,000 a year to live comfortably. On Wall Street, stocks were mixed, with the Dow falling more than 100 and the Nasdaq up by 61 points. That's Your Money Now.
Progressive presents Employee of the Month. Small Business Edition. Today's recipient from Lucky Larry's Landscaping, Larry! Larry saved his business money with a quick commercial auto quote from Progressive. Does it help he's his own marketing manager, accountant, executive assistant, and never been late? Technically, yes, but saving really put him over the edge. So, Larry, give Larry a round of applause. Be your own Larry. See if you could save in as little as 7 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
Pure opportunity is what Michigan is all about. The opportunity to do more. The opportunity to connect with the best talent. The opportunity for people of all backgrounds to grow and expand their business. The opportunity to live and work in a state where paychecks go further. The opportunity is now and is right here in Michigan. Visit michiganbusiness.org to discover all the ways the Michigan Economic Development Corporation can help your business thrive.
Hey, Banner Construction is a great, very successful company here in St. Louis. Bill Coffin and Sam P. very proud of the work that they've done on homes throughout the area. You could take advantage of that right now by getting a free in-home design consultation with the team from Banner. Now, when you go with the best like Banner Construction, you get the best. I can reverse that as well. I can say you get the best products when you go with the best. They only really specialize in the best, like Pella windows, which are amazing. Pella is celebrating their 100th year in business. They started way back in 1925. Look, your home is clearly one of the biggest investments you'll ever make. If we're being honest, because of the home supply issue and because of interest rates, people are staying in their home longer than maybe they used to, enhancing the flow, the appearance of your home, increasing curb appeal value, cutting your energy consumption, eliminating a lot of maintenance costs. That's what they focus on, and they do it very well, and they've been doing it for 3+ decades. So if you're interested in a free in-home design consultation, get with the team at Banner today. You can always do a little homework by checking out the website, bannerconstruction.com. The phone number, 314-569-1050. It would do me a huge favor if when you call, you tell me you heard about it right here on 97.1 FM Talk, and have a banner day.
The reason many of us hate insurance companies is because some of them act like bullies. I'm John Morgan of Morgan & Morgan. I've been dealing with these creatures my whole career. Whether it's a workers' comp claim, an auto accident, or a nursing home or medical mishap, the playbook is often the same: deny and delay. We became the largest injury firm in America for a reason. We fight the bullies. They know who we are, and I know it makes a difference for our clients. Just go to forthepeople.com and see our results and our verdicts after those bullies gave us their final offer. Hiring the wrong firm can be disastrous. Hiring the right firm could substantially increase your settlement. It's easy to get going. Visit forthepeople.com on your phone or computer, or call us on your cell at #law, #529. Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm. forthepeople.com.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements. Past results afford no guarantee of future results. Every case is different and must be judged on its own merit.
It's time for a $98 AC tune-up.
At 4:33, this portion of the show is sponsored by our friends at Jerry Kelly Heating and Air.
For details and a list of all station contest rules, visit www.971talk.com/rules. You're listening to The Mark Reardon Show on 97.1 FM Talk.
She's blood, flesh, and bone.
I have not visited with Gerry Baker. I'm a big fan of Jerry's. I love his work at the Wall Street Journal. He is an editor at large, writes a column on a regular basis. We'll talk Iran and some things related to New York with Jerry after 5 o'clock. And then, so I don't know if you saw this story in the local paper about the population growth, and St. Louis is not heading in the right direction.
Right.
It begs the question, how long can this city actually survive, or how can it rebound? And I have this dinner like quarterly with Jeff Rainford, who's the mayor's former chief of staff for Mayor Slay, and Rex Singfield, who's involved in a lot of issues. And we had dinners about 2 months ago, and we talked about this very topic. So piggybacking off the article in our local paper, which I think was in Monday's edition, probably in Tuesday's printed edition, because they have to print it in Columbia. But Jeff's going to weigh in on that in the next hour. Plus, we'll have audio cut of the day. On the topic of reporters, local rabble-rouser, retired Fox 2 investigative reporter Elliott Davis back with us this afternoon to talk about several topics. Elliott, how are you? Good afternoon. Hope you're surviving the heat.
I am doing great. I think I'm the busiest retired guy in St. Louis.
You seem to be from your Facebook post. And I mentioned the heat because, look, we've talked about this the last couple of days. I can't even imagine having to work outside. We sit here and quite candidly, we bitch about how cold our studio is because it's 68 degrees. I have to wear a hoodie a la John Fetterman every day, but I can't even imagine being out there and having to work in this. But I know you're working with some of the homeless people who are out there and they don't even have shelters from some of this as well. That's one of your motivations right now, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been out there since the heat wave began. Been taking ice, cold water, and yesterday was Gatorade. But we started Monday taking items out, and I think a number of people are doing that too. But when I get there, there's usually no ice left, nothing. And so we go and we get 20 or 30. We've been increasing it each day, the number of bags of ice that we take out there, because the people, it's just a scorcher. Obviously, and the people, it is a real struggle out there, as I deal with all the folks. So that's what I've been doing. Like I said, I've done it 2 days so far, getting ready to do a third. A lot been going on today. But one of the things that I've been saying, and I'm going to be a kinder, gentler Elliott today.
Look at that. Wow. Are we prepared for that? That's interesting.
So,
go ahead, though. I want to hear this.
I'm getting ready to launch this kinder, gentler Elliott. That you haven't seen it yet. But one of the things I've said, Mark, is that the city has done nothing for the people in the homeless encampment. I would have thought that the city or the mayor or somebody or the mayor would have directed her city agencies. I'm not saying she has to do everything because she's got a ton of things, but she has people working for her. Nobody had been out there from the city to do anything. And there's 46 people at this homeless encampment. And so
where is it, by the way? Because it used to be over by the dilapidated courts building in City Hall. Then that came down, and then they kind of moved here to this park that's immediately to the west of where we sit at Park Pacific, between 13th and 14th Street, right off Olive. But I haven't even seen them out there in the last week or so.
10th and Cass.
Okay.
And there are about 46 people who stay there. Bunch of tents set up. Like I said, it's about 46 folks. It's actually growing. And so my contention is that the city certainly could go check on these people, send your health department people out there, make sure no one has medical issues, send human services out there to pass out bottles. I have consistently been calling on Mayor Kara Spencer to go out there. Even before the tornado, I said, look, I talked to the leaders of the encampment. They wanted to be able to meet the mayor to tell her what's going on. Here's what we needed, because we couldn't get anything under Tashara Jones when she was the mayor. That's why I'm paying $500 a month for a dumpster for everybody so they can have trash.
No, what you got from Tashara was fencing around City Hall and Pelker Park and the courts building for like 18 months. That's what you got from her.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But Kara is not doing anything for them either. And so we're going through heat. And I always say, just like when we started talking about the Ram settlement money, and I initially started saying, hey, the city should spend that money, some of it anyway, and they finally, of course, came around. But my feeling is that if you're not going to go out there and check on these people when there is a heat wave with temperatures reaching 100 degrees, when are you going to get a homeless program? When are you going to check on people who are homeless in the city? And this is a big encampment.
Okay.
So I've been going out and I've been calling on the mayor to do the same.
That is a valid. I understand your point on that, but what happens, and I go way back to the 1980s with Larry Rice in the homeless situation when I was in Columbia as I was a budding journalist, and obviously Larry's name is not mentioned as much in coordination with this right now, but it's always been a situation in my eyes, and you tell me if this is wrong, that there are opportunities for the homeless population to go into shelters to seek, relief from the heat and get food, but a lot of the folks that are in the encampments, they don't want to do that because they don't want to play by the rules and they just refuse to do it. So isn't there that component that exists a little bit as well?
Let me answer that question. Many of them, they carry all their belongings on their back, and often they can't bring their belongings into the shelter. And if they leave it someplace, they risk their stuff getting stolen. That's why a lot of them don't go into the shelter. So if you have to carry all the contents of your house around every place you went, and that was on your back, and then they said, okay, you can come to the library, but you can't bring all your stuff in the library. So what choice what do you make? What do you do? And so all the valuables, valuable to you, all the stuff that you have is on your back. You can't bring that. If you leave it outside, it's going to get stolen. If you leave it in a tent, it could get stolen. And so people make those kinds of choices.
And I get that as well.
Just like we interviewed the lady who was lost her house in the tornado. Tornado flattened her house, and she pitched a tent right next to her house. Didn't want to leave her stuff.
I understand that aspect too, but what was the intersection over by Chippewa and Ted Drew's where somebody basically just camped out in front of this person's house and they were there for like years, and it was basically on the area that the homeowner didn't own, the city owned, the city didn't do anything about that. So you do have situations where actual homeowners are affected by these things as well. And then residents don't feel safe if they're coming downtown. I know I've seen a lot of drug activity with the homeless people. It's outside of the homeless people as well, even in this little 3-block area where we work here. So that's also a concern when these things happen, I think.
Yeah, it is. When you get into a residential area, that's a whole different animal over there. When you're talking about those situations, someone's camped out in front of a house. These people are kind of in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
They say vacant lots all around them. So it's not like they are in the middle of a neighborhood. They're on this vacant lot, and they're there with the permission of the landowner. It's a privately owned part of land. And so I'm saying, as long as they're not in a neighborhood, right? And so as long as you have these 46 people out there, they're human beings too. And they should have. If we're paying all this money to the city, is getting like $17 million a year to help the homeless.
Yeah, what are they doing with it? Right. It's a resources issue. Yeah, I get it. By the way, when you first came on, you said, I'm taking ICE. I thought you meant you were taking ICE agents out there, around the city. You kind of shocked me there. I do want your opinion on Sheriff Montgomery. A.G. Bailey was in the studio with me in the last hour. He's trying to file a quo warranto, as they say, quo warranto, which they did with Kim Gardner. He did that today to remove him from office. Have you been on that story?
Of course I have.
Of course.
I was at his news conference today, but I think I'm the only reporter to sit down in a one-on-one interview with the sheriff. And we did that on Friday. So I actually did get a chance to talk to him as well, one-on-one, and ask him all the questions I wanted.
Is what he has done, it's been well documented on this show, on local media, in STL Today, you've talked about it. Are his decisions and his behavior defensible in any way?
He made some bad decisions.
Okay, well, at least we can agree on that, right?
I mean, there's no rolling golden dice
for someone's job.
For someone to keep their job.
Yeah.
Handcuffing the jail commissioner, deputy jail commissioner, because you want to get in to interview somebody. Getting rid of all the people who the predecessors folks when you come into office, and then by doing so you blow a $400,000 hole in your budget, telling the city, well, we're not going to haul medical people who need to go to emergency room anymore. We're not going to carry them. I mean, so how are they supposed to get to the hospital? They're in jail. They can't just walk out the door and go themselves. So just a lot of things. And then when you've got that big a hole in your budget, right, you're saying, okay, I don't have money to carry these inmates to the hospital. I got no money for that, but I can get a $56,000 Chevy Beetle.
Right. So going back to my question, Elliott, I mean, were his answers, and I apologize, I haven't watched the interview, were his answers in any way, shape, or form feasible?
Not really.
Okay, I'm going to take that as a no.
let me take that. It's probably feasible to him,
right?
But to me, listening to it, a lot of it just did not make sense.
Yeah.
It's not what and I asked him, and he was gracious enough to sit down and talk to me. But I asked him, I said, but the one thing like he did with the $30,000 for 250 new gold badges, and I just said, well, who does that? And I asked,
and what did he say? He says, I do.
Said.
Yeah.
Well, and he proceeded to give me his long answer for it. But there are a lot of number of things and answers, and this is what the Attorney General was saying. But the Attorney General, as you know, you talked to him, he went one step further. He has about, 8 different things down or something. And he says any one of them, he says, would be grounds to throw the sheriff out of office. Sheriff believes he can defend all of this stuff.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. I do not have a lot of time, so I probably only have like a minute and a half, and I'd love to get your thoughts, though. I had Governor Kehoe on last night. I candidly was a little disappointed with the appointments to the St. Louis Police Board, which was just, announced a couple of days ago. Your thoughts on that? And, obviously there's complaints from a bunch of different sides, I think, on this one.
I think since the city is half black, then the police board should have been half minority. That's my opinion. And I think that there should have been some agreed upon, civic leaders. That doesn't mean you can't have business people on, but, I would have liked to have seen some other people on, like a Mike McMillan, for example, on the police board, and some people that the community, the African-American community, can say, okay, here's our guy. We don't expect to get everybody on. I do like the fact that he picked Sonia Jenkins Gray, because I did stories on her when she was battling Tashara. So that's a personal deal. I like her on.
Well, and I understand that, but it was 5 white guys and business owners and then her, right?
And so there's nobody really that the community really knows, on that board. Nobody going to say, oh yeah, I know them. Okay. They've got some gravitas, and not taking anything away from the people that they pick. But I think when you got a city that half black and you got a police department that's going to be dealing with 80% or 70% black suspects in a lot of these cases, homicide as another, the board of police commissioners should have reflected the community. This one doesn't.
I am not a quota person, but I do not disagree with you on that particular issue. So I was a little surprised, but we'll have to see. The governor defended those choices last night on this show. Elliott, great to have you on. Keep on him. I appreciate it.
Always good.
All right,
thank you, buddy.
Take care.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
Well, we've had an interesting commute, and if you are headed into Illinois, it's a lot better than it was yesterday. Really just a little bit of volume eastbound 5564 at the 70 split. But then, of course, we have a jam 5570 eastbound approaching the construction zone and the closure starting at 255 that goes through 159. That, by the way, will be in place through the weekend. They hope to have it reopened by 5 a.m. on Monday. Westbound 44 jamming in front of the Arch grounds. Westbound 6440 lines up Kings Highway out through McCausland. Moderate volume through Chesterfield Valley and slow pockets Highway N out through the 70 split. 70 itself eastbound a little slow near the airport. Westbound slow there as well, but it's not that bad as you head further out. Now, there was an accident reported southbound on 170. That one reported to be north of Ladue Road, but I see a jam that goes back behind, and it looks like it goes all the way back through Olive. So take care through there. I'm Sue Thomas. This report brought to you by Overhead Door Company of St. Louis, and that's traffic on 97.1 FM Talk.
Cash for Clunkers is back. Overhead Door Company of St. Louis is paying cash for your clunkers now. Schedule online at overheaddoorsstlouis.com or call 314-781-5200. It's cash for clunkers now at Overhead Door Company of St. Louis.
I always rave about Innsbruck, which is beautiful. It's less than an hour away from St. Louis. It's quieter than the Lake of the Ozarks. And if fishing is your thing, there's over 100 lakes. The 4th of July is huge out at Innsbruck. They have a great fireworks competition and show. It's a gated resort community. So it really is a haven for those who want to do a staycation or have a place weekend or year round because it's so close. It really has been for a long time one of the best kept secrets here in St. Louis. So you could dip your feet in the water if you've never been to Innsbruck and rent a property out there. We do that a couple of times a year in my family. We're trying to get something on the calendar right now. We do dog friendly. If it's in the fall or the spring, we like to have a hot tub at the property. So you have options there, and it can be a big house or a smaller house. If you're interested in maybe living in Innsbruck, whether it's just a primary residence, a vacation home, or investment property, they have 1 to 3 acre lots available to build homes on. And they have folks who are experts on site, agents who have been there for 33 years. Another has been with Innsbruck for his whole working life. So these are the folks that really know the details. They help customers before, during, and even after the sale. They know that there's a lot about being an owner at Innsbruck, and the agents are particularly experienced in that. And they want to make sure you get into the right home the right way. Again, it's beautiful out there. It's close to St. Louis. You can find out more at Innsbruck-resort.com or call 636-928-3366.
Let's just face it, right? Your home should work for you, not against you. Hi, it's Kim. And if you've been dreaming of a new kitchen, bathroom, or a finished basement, now's the time to call Lakeside Renovation and Design. They're St. Louis's trusted experts in turning houses into dream homes. Just imagine this, a spa-like bathroom, maybe a chef-inspired kitchen, or how about a cozy basement perfect for some movie nights? Their team handles everything from design to installation, so you can just sit back and enjoy the process. Visit lakesidearty.com today to start your dream renovation.
Insurance companies often have a basic strategy: delay, deny, defend. Some try to grind you down, but they have another tremendous weapon, a software called Colossus. They know which attorneys are great and which are not so great. They know who is likely to take the last offer and who will take them by their scalp, kicking and screaming to trial. They know that they have to pay some firms early and fairly. I'm John Morgan of Morgan & Morgan. The insurance companies have done their homework. Before you hire a lawyer for your injury case, do yours. Visit forthepeople.com and see our settlements and verdicts for cases like yours. We became the largest injury firm in the world for a reason. When you hire the wrong firm, you may be beat before you start. All law firms are not the same. Morgan & Morgan, forthepeople.com.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements. Past results afford no guarantee of future results. Every case is different and must be judged on its own merits.
1 in 4 people surveyed by Bankrate.com say they're literally losing sleep because of worries that they may have not saved enough to retire. If you're ready to get serious about planning for your financial future, you could start by listening to the All Financial Hour with host Steve Auld of the All Financial Group.
What are your wishes, hopes, and dreams? What's retirement look like for you? Because everybody, that picture is different. If you want assistance, we can also help you at that point.
Tune in to the All Financial Hour with Steve Auld, Saturday mornings at 6, right here on 97.1 FM Talk.
Sponsored by Progressive. Progressive is here for all of life's needs with protection for your home, auto, business, and more. From timely repairs to customizable coverages and payment options, we make it easy. See if you can save at Progressive.com.
97.1 FM Talk is proud to partner with Guns N' Hoses to support St. Louis area tornado victims, and we need your help. This is Annie inviting you to bring supplies to Dave Munganess, St. Louis Honda, Monday through Saturday. Visit 971talk.com/relief.
So many times here on a Wednesday edition of the show, we visit with Alex Rich, who is a personal friend of mine. He's a good radio friend as well, and we talk about fun things on a Wednesday afternoon. He is not here today because his wedding is now soon. We've talked about this for a long time, just 3 days away. But I've invited him to spend a few minutes with us this afternoon. You guys will find this funny story because I was honored enough to be, because we're friends, we've hung out together, invited to the ceremony and to the wedding. And I actually had to text you today and ask you what question, Alex?
Well, it doesn't matter if it's a business meeting, a round of golf, or even your wedding.
Yeah.
But Mark had to text me and say, hey, just to confirm, what time, not only what time, where is the wedding at?
Yeah. Wow. I had no idea, but I am consistent. You're right. In anything that happens in my life, I always have to text the person, say, hey, where is that meeting again? So I
guess you didn't have an invitation then.
I did, but I didn't have it handy.
Well, you're supposed
He
to.
had the invitation and he had the wedding website as well, which is unfortunate because today was totally my out to finally just tell Mark. I could have told Mark that the wedding was anywhere, and he would have shown up.
You know what?
And I should have told him a fake location.
Once you reminded me that it's at Union Station, I did remember that.
That's going to be beautiful.
But look, this is like a 3-day event, right? You got the rehearsal dinner tomorrow night. It's not the night before. You have the welcome party. I don't think I'm invited to the welcome party.
You're not from out of town.
It's like a Bezos event.
Yeah, what is the welcome
and really,
party?
You're never welcome.
Right, but what is the welcome party? What does that entail? How is that different from the rehearsal dinner?
So this is the thing. I guess you could call. I am a millennial. This is the thing that these millennials are doing these days, especially for the people that are from out of town. Not everybody is invited to the rehearsal dinner. We got a big wedding party. It's obviously for the family and people that are there to actually rehearse the ceremony. And so we're doing that Thursday night. And then Friday is indeed the welcome party. So we do a little gathering, little appetizers, some drinks. And we're doing that at the Boathouse at Forest Park. And it's really for the people from out of town, because the reality is at the wedding, we don't really get to totally hang out with our friends from out of town and talk as much as we'd like.
No, I get that for
that's
sure.
That's where we use the welcome party as an opportunity to do that. So we're excited. We hope it cools off a little bit.
Yeah,
but
no
we're
kidding.
excited about doing that.
But
Yeah.
the ceremony then is at 2:00 on Saturday at the Piper Palm House, and then the reception is at 5:30 until midnight. I don't think I'm going to make it to the ceremony, but we are going to make it to the reception. I boarded the puppy to make sure that we don't have to worry about the puppy.
Nice.
Alex, you have
Did you
not met the
really?
puppy. You have not met Max yet. We're going to
I've
get a
not
play
met
date.
Max yet. I know we need to set that up. And the other thing I'd like to mention is and again, we're talking consistency with Mark Reardon. I myself look, the reality is Mark could have just not shown up to the ceremony. I honestly wouldn't have known the difference. There's 200 people there, right? Mark even did me the courtesy and just straight up said, "Hey, we're not going to be at the ceremony. We'll come to the party."
I could have lied. I could have lied.
Totally.
What a
he could've
beautiful,
said it was
I will
the
tell
most-
Annie, don't tell Annie. Okay, I'm going to say, oh my God, the ceremony, I always cry at weddings and I cried. The ceremony was beautiful, but good luck this weekend. I know there's hey, is Vic in the wedding party?
He's in the wedding party.
I
I'm
can't
hoping
wait.
there might be a little surprise there with it as well. And I'll make sure security escorts you out as early as possible.
We'll see you Saturday night, okay?
All right, we'll see you
All
guys.
right.
Thanks so much.
Vic Oladipo, one of his best friends. Vic was a star basketball player at Indiana. I think he was the number 2 pick in the NBA draft one year. He played for multiple teams in the NBA, and he's one of Alex's besties.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
On the roads, let's see. We've got some volume on southbound 55 south of Arsenal down through Bates in the construction zone there. We've got 44 westbound slowing in front of the Arch grounds. Things are not too bad on the Poplar Street Bridge. A little bit of volume headed into Illinois. Then, of course, a jam on eastbound 5570 headed for 255, where that section is closed through 159. We've also got westbound 70, moderate volume, Jennings Station Road, and a little bit out at Highway A. There was an accident southbound 170, and we're left with slow pockets from Olive through 40. Westbound 6440 is slow go Kings Highway out through McCausland, slow through Chesterfield Valley as well, and at the 64 split. I'm Sue Thomas with traffic on 97.1 FM Talk.
Gerry Baker from the Wall Street Journal is on deck after Fox News. I want to guide you into help from the Retirement Advisor Group. Thomas Helbig and the team have been longtime sponsors of 97.1 FM Talk, and we do these seminars 5 times a year. We have some more that we'll announce very soon, but if you'd like to go in one-on-one, you see the fluctuation on Wall Street. Like I checked the Dow today, it was down. Yesterday, it was up. It can go down again if you have money that's tied up on Wall Street. Most people don't even know where that money really is when it comes to your retirement savings or your 401k. So why not get educated and maybe get educated from a different perspective, because they are different. I always think that Mark Cox does a great job of explaining this when we do the seminars, because Mark used to work in financial services for a brokerage house and even says, look, I'm not, saying bad things about them, but this is a different approach, and it's an approach that works for a lot of people. And the clients of Thomas will rave about it, and they'll tell you that he doesn't tell you what to do with your money. He advises you in a way, and the way that they do it is they safely link to the market. That's what they'll teach you, and in that way, you will not lose a penny of your principal. So if you'd like to find out more, if you'd like to go one-on-one into the office, 314-993-9494. The website is great too, retirementkey.com. For the official financial planners of this show, Thomas Helbig and the Retirement Advisory Group.
Have you been notified that your subsidy for Obamacare health insurance is going away? Well, you can leave now while you're still healthy and qualify for much better individual plans. Greg Hammonds at greghammonds.com has been helping people get affordable health insurance with great coverage for over 35 years. Greg offers private health insurance plans that are not on the ACA marketplace. You can pick your doctors. For most claims, you won't even pay a deductible, and they're 30 to 60% lower cost than Obamacare. One more thing, there's no tax penalty at the end of the year. Greg even has plans that are guaranteed acceptance. If you pay for your own health insurance, you're uninsured, you're on COBRA, or your employer coverage is just too expensive, call Greg at 314-794-7784. That's 314-794-7784. Or go to greghammonds.com. That's greghammonds.com. He can custom design a plan by you, not the government.
Your biggest choice in home restoration is, who do you trust with your home, your most valued asset? Few can match Banner Construction's experience and dedication to excellence. Banner is an elite preferred James Hardie contractor and Pella Window specialist. Restoration is a one-time opportunity to have Banner's design team show you architectural options to make your home the neighborhood showcase. Call for a free consultation, 314-569-1050. Now hiring qualified carpenters.
On Monday, there was a story in the Post-Dispatch about the population dwindling in the city of St. Louis and what that meant, and it was not very optimistic, and there's not a lot of hope. Jeff Rainford, the former chief of staff for Mayor Slay, is going to weigh in on that after Gerry Baker. That's coming up in the next hour.
KFTK FM Florissant from the Kaufman Townsley St. Louis's Injury Lawyers Studio. Call 314-500-5000.
That's 314-500-5000.
All on the free Odyssey app.
The president says Iran is coming to the table. I'm Tom Rigotti, Fox News. The NATO summit in the Netherlands, where President Trump announcing new nuclear talks with Iran.
We're going to talk to them next week with Iran. We may sign an agreement. I don't know. To me, I don't think it's that necessary. I mean, they had a war, they fought. Now they're going back to their world. I don't care if I have an agreement or not.
The president says collected intelligence since U.S. airstrikes indicates obliteration at Iran nuclear sites. But a leaked early intelligence report indicates Iran's weapons program was only set back a few months. Fox's Peter Ducey is with the president at The Hague.
President Trump is not putting much stock at all in the Defense Intelligence Agency's low confidence assessment that the Iranian nuclear program may have survived.
They didn't see it. All they can do is take a guess.
The president leaves The Hague with many new commitments from NATO partners to boost defense spending, except Spain. But the president has a plan to punish them.
We'll make it up. You know what we're going to do? We're negotiating with Spain on a trade deal. We're going to make them pay twice as much.
Now that the president is gone, we just have to wait to see if that sticks.
Well, after a shaky start, the ceasefire between Israel and Iran appears to be holding.
The good news out of this region is that ceasefire appears to be holding on this first full day of the pause. It's been quiet here in Tel Aviv, except for the hubbub of the city. Restrictions on work, school, and gatherings have been lifted. This as there are discussions here, too, about how strong the U.S. strikes were against the Iranian nuclear sites. For his part, the IDF spokesman was pretty definitive, describing the damage as significant, setting back Iran's nuclear program, in his words, for years.
That's Fox's Greg Palcott in Tel Aviv. America is listening to Fox News.
Hey, listen to this. All I needed was a new starter. Got a great deal on eBay. Did it myself.
Yeah, that's cool. But how about the soft purr of an upgraded exhaust when it fits just right?
For me, it's the little things, like these new windshield wipers from eBay I installed.
From small fixes to big upgrades, eBay has all the parts you need at prices you'll love, guaranteed to fit every time. eBay, things people love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Sometimes an identity threat is a ring of professional hackers. And sometimes it's an overworked accountant who forgot to encrypt their connection while sending bank details.
I need a coffee.
And you need LifeLock, because your info is in endless places. It only takes one mistake to expose you to identity theft. LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code NEWS at LifeLock.com. Terms apply.
Air Comfort Service, heating, cooling, and insulation, weather.
The big old sinking dome of high pressure continues to be locked in over the eastern two-thirds of the nation, and we are right in it. Partly sunny, hot, and humid, maybe a pop late-day thunderstorm, 95 for the high. Tonight, partly cloudy, warm and humid, 76. Thursday, partly to mostly sunny, up to 97. Friday, same story, but we'll add a pop thunderstorm again Friday and 95. This is 97.1 FM Talk. Chief Meteorologist Dave Murray.
This hour of the Mark Reardon Show is sponsored by Gamma Tree Experts. Your trees deserve the best care. Call Gamma Tree Experts. Lighting it up. Mark Reardon on 97.1 FM Talk.
Before the break in the last hour, I mentioned this story that was in the Post-Dispatch a couple of days ago. And unfortunately, look, I want to root for the city of St. Louis, and I'm fine with a revitalization and spending money to, make the dome not such a pile and a heap of, and getting a development at the AT&T building, albeit without taxpayer money. But the story that was out on Monday talks about, I guess really, there's no optimism, I don't think, and we're going to address this with Jeff Rainford in just a little bit here later this hour, on whether or not the population and the region can recover from what's happened. The headline of the story was, "We are in trouble. St. Louis region's slowing population growth spurs a call for action." So this was the topic of a dinner that I had recently with Jeff Rainford, who is former Mayor Slay's chief of staff. And we were talking with someone who is in economic development, and Rex Singfield, who I dine with about 4 times a year, was there. And we were talking about the stagnant population and how it's a problem, because you just simply can't have, you think about young people. Ethan Hannaford, one of my producers, a young person. Young people have to want to move to St. Louis. They want to have to stay in St. Louis, and they're trying to do something about it. But I'm just going to tell you, it's a big, big hurdle. And when the population keeps going down and down and down, how does the city recover? There's a guy who is described as a veteran public policy executive who's working on this new effort. And we'll kind of talk about the effort at 5:30, saying, we're in trouble. We don't recognize we're in trouble, but we're in trouble. Look, I recognize that we're in trouble. And this is important not only from a downtown St. Louis situation, but it really is important from a regional situation. So we're going to share some thoughts on that. Plus, we have audio cut of the day coming up as well. Let's talk a little bit about Iran and everything that's happening there. Gerry Baker from the Wall Street Journal back with us this afternoon. It's been a bit. Gerry, how are you?
Hello, Mark. Thanks very much for having me.
I like the way, in your most recent piece, you kind of broke it down in a way that, people want to put labels on a lot of this stuff, like neocons or restrainers. And your point is, making choices like that is probably not a good idea when things are complicated in this situation and others, right?
Yeah, I think that's right, Mark. I was trying to, sort of dig into this debate that apparently is going on within Republican circles, within MAGA circles in particular, between the so-called restrainers, those who think, with some justification, actually, I should say, that Donald Trump was elected and has been successful in large part by staying out of messy foreign wars, which the United States has unfortunately got itself into in the last 20 years. And I say that's been the key to success. And those who think of a more traditional Republican stance, you can call them maybe neocons. That's a slightly overused term, but those who think, no, the U.S. should be intervening, robustly. It's the most powerful nation on earth, and it should intervene in all kinds of ways. I think it's a false debate. I think it's a false dichotomy between those two. And I think particularly in this case, or let me put it another way, that I think what Trump did in striking the nuclear facility at Fordo in Iran was entirely consistent with his broadly kind of hands-off approach that he's followed both in his first term and in the first 6 months of his second term, because it's not true that Donald Trump has not deployed military action in the past, as we know he did during the first term, most famously and successfully in eliminating that Iranian military leader Qasem Soleimani and a couple of other targeted strikes too. So he's demonstrated a willingness to use force, but as long as it's got a very clear objective, as long as it's very targeted, as long as it doesn't involve a kind of long-term, open-ended commitment of the United States to objectives, frankly, like regime change and things like that might not be achievable. So I think what he's done is, is consistent with what he's done all along. It's neither neocon nor is it restrainer. I just think in the end it was a thanks, I should say, also to the extraordinary work that the Israeli military's done over the last year and a half in basically, eroding organizations like Hamas and Hezbollah and ultimately Iran's defenses. It was a golden opportunity, really, a tremendous opportunity for the United States to really go in and pursue its own objectives, which is certainly to stop Iran from getting a nuclear bomb. And I think it just, as I said, it was a measured and judicious action by a president who, sometimes when it comes to some policies doesn't always act in a measured and judicious way. But I think when it comes to foreign policy, I think on the whole he has.
And by the way, I mean, he kind of made it clear that this would happen, right? It's not like he didn't talk about this, that there wasn't a timetable involved and that he stuck to that timetable and then acted. So it couldn't have been like, it's not like it came out of nowhere. I mean, this president promises things. Not all the promises are kept, but in this case, he said what he was going to do and he did it.
Yeah, look, and I do think, we've been talking about the Iranian nuclear program literally for 20 years.
Yes.
George W. Bush and even Bill Clinton talked about it. But we've known about that there's been a clear commitment and indeed facilities for a nuclear program in Iran since Bush was president. And Bush talked about, Bush pursued diplomatic efforts to try and get them to back off it. Obama very famously did and signed a deal with the Europeans and others too to try and get them to back off it. That didn't turn out very successfully. Trump, essentially took a kind of a hands-off approach and pulled us out of that deal in his first term, and then Biden once again tried diplomatic measures. And I think Trump, I think the direct approach of just bombing the place and actually, again, we'll have to see what these competing intelligence assessments finally say, but they've clearly done enormous damage to it, and being able to do that, given, as I say, the damage that Israel has already done to Iran's capability to respond, that just seems to me to be, it's the kind of direct, robust, but very limited. And it's very striking to me, Mark, that, the president now keeps saying, basically, that's it. It's all done, one and done. We're done. The war's over, 12 days. It's all over. That all of that seems to me to be completely consistent with the way President Trump has conducted basically most of his foreign policy over the last 10 years.
I was going to talk about this yesterday, and the last 2 days, time got away from me. But did you see the tweet from Marjorie Taylor Greene on this a couple of days ago?
Yes. Which one? Because there've been quite a few.
So what she said, and I think these were initial thoughts on bombing Iran. And she said, I don't know anyone in America who's been the victim of a crime killed by Iran, but I know many people have been victims of crimes, committed by criminal aliens. She goes on to say, neocon, she uses these words, neocon warmongers beat their drums of war and act like Billy Badasses going to war in countries most Americans have never seen and can't find on a map, but never find the courage to go to war against the actual terrorists who actually do kill Americans, invade our land, and make billions doing it day after day, year after year. She's talking about, some of the fentanyl that comes in, et cetera. Now, I understand her point in that tweet. She goes on to say, look, I want to fund American interests and issues. She's on the DOJ committee. I can agree with a lot of what she says in here. But again, she kind of goes back to sort of, I think, simplifying this in a way that you addressed in your piece, because she's trying to stand out there. And I don't know if we'd tag her as an isolationist, but there are people like, her and maybe Tom Massey and others on the Republican side, maybe not many, that think, this is not the right thing to do at this time. And I think that's simplifying and not looking at the bigger picture. And as you indicated, we've been trying to do this for a long time.
Yeah, I agree. Look, and again, that's another false choice. The idea that we have to choose between going after illegal immigrants in this country, and especially initially, those who commit crimes, going after everybody who commits crimes in this country, which is the first responsibility of any government, is to ensure that there is, law and order. But the idea that we can only do that and we can't look after our own national security interests at the same time.
Yeah.
Most people are capable of walking and chewing gum at the same time. We can do the two things. And I particularly objected in that X post by her that she's not concerned that Iranians, are killing Americans, and whereas many illegal immigrants and others are doing so. Because actually, of course, many Americans have died at the hands of Iranians in the last 20 years. We lost a large number to Iranian-backed, funded, and sometimes even operated activities against our forces in Iraq and to some extent also in Afghanistan, and also some of our forces in Syria from time to time been attacked by them. We've Iran's support for Hezbollah and Hamas has been used against Americans in the past. Actually, I mean, by some estimates, thousands of Americans have been killed by the Iranian regime over the last 20 or 30 years. So the idea that that isn't a threat to us that we need to take seriously, and especially when that enemy of ours, which is sworn to destroy the country and describes us as the great Satan and wants to, basically kill every American if they can on the earth, and that country wants to get a nuclear weapon, it makes total sense to me that we should, as well as going after domestic criminals and people who commit crimes against Americans here in the homeland, that we should go after people with very, very powerful weapons who say they want to wipe our country off the face of the earth.
Gerry Baker is here from the Wall Street Journal. No doubt you've probably seen the reaction this morning from Pete Hegseth and President Trump on the CNN report. And I guess the New York Times got involved in this, saying that sources say that they did not destroy the core components of the nuclear program and likely set it back only by months, which that seems an interesting. I've heard anything from months to 3 years to 30 years. But thoughts on that, because this is where this trust of the media comes into play, and that's why President Trump popped off on this earlier today. I played some audio earlier in the show. I might follow up with you here in the aftermath of our interview, addressing that again. And I have audio cut of the day. The audience knows I feature that at 5:50. But they're so quick. I even mentioned this, Gerry, the other day. I had to watch CNN on Saturday night because I just wanted to see how they would cover it. And it was awkward. They didn't know how to cover it. But man, when they get a source that they think says that something's not successful for the U.S. military or President Trump, they jump on that pretty quickly, don't they?
Yeah, it was a little, exactly as you say, it was a little grating. And by the way, who else did repeated the same story? That was the New York Times, of course, yesterday, who reported the same, unidentified, anonymous sources at the Defense Intelligence Agency, the DIA, quoting these. Look, it's no accident that people have no trust in many of these media institutions. These are the same media institutions that told us that Donald Trump was a Russian agent, and that the U.S. government had been taken over essentially by a foreign power. Something that we learned, of course, very quickly was absolutely untrue and completely bogus. So, I completely understand the skepticism that people have about this early estimate. Look, it's going to take time. Everybody knows I'm not an expert in these things, but when you drop bombs.
It's going to take a while
on
to
a
assess.
site, on a target
right.
thousands of miles away, especially on a target that is buried hundreds of meters underground. We don't have fantastic on the ground intelligence there. We have some, and I think Israel does too. It's going to take some time to get an assessment of it. So I think, but my particular problem with the way that was reported yesterday was, it was I think they put the most sort of negative possible gloss on the report. I went in and read more of the report in detail, or read more of the reporting of the reporters were in detail. And the report was highly, highly tentative and conditional. It said very low. It said low confidence that we have in knowing this. It gave a range of possible outcomes, and Trump mentioned this at his press conference this morning too. That there was, the lowest outcome, the worst, if you like, possible outcome was we've only set this back a few months, but there could be other outcomes where it could be worse than that. So it was very striking that the media, so many of the CNN and the New York Times in particular, were so keen to go to the very, very, the most unhelpful, the most damaging part of this report, while actually ignoring the fact that the report itself was extremely uncertain, extremely conditional in terms of its own assessment.
It's not an illegitimate question, and the only hesitation I've had in basically saying this is complete obliteration is because I think there are some questions about whether or not they moved some of the uranium, and whether there were ways to hide some of this and then recreate this program rather quickly. But on the other hand, to your point, there's still a lot that we don't know. And the instinct on my part has been, certainly in the last 7 or 8 years since 2016, is that these things usually come from people who are not fans of Trump and they're trying to do damage. So we'll have to see what the assessments say. Now, along those lines, Gerry Baker, I've been reading your columns. You're not a fan of everything that this president does, right? That's fair to say, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. I mean, we talked about it before, Mark. I think, again, you know my views. I completely understand why people voted for Trump. American leadership has largely failed them over the last 20 years. We've had this woke, progressive, cultural, left-wing, ideological takeover of most of our institutions in the last 20 years, from everything from academia to the media to large parts of big business to the federal government. They want change, and Donald Trump represents that change. And I think, and I was optimistic and remain optimistic that he can make many of those important changes. I also think that globalization, which is the kind of doctrine that has dominated so many of our leadership and institutions over the last 20 years or so, has also failed American people. And Donald Trump represents again, the most cogent and the most plausible alternative to globalization of any leader we've seen. But, so I say all of that in his defense and all of that, and, appreciating some of the good things that he's done. But, I think some of the ways in which he goes about these things are not necessarily very productive. The most obvious, which I feel, and we've spoken about before, and doubtless will again, and I will write about again, I don't think that the chaotic and unpredictable way in which he's going about either tariffs or relations with our allies is very helpful. I think it's extremely damaging. America's the most powerful country on earth. We don't need the rationale behind the tariffs is frankly madness. I think there's plenty to be said for making other countries play by the rules when it comes to trade, but imposing these across the board tariffs was madness, damaging to the United States and damaging to our ability to get what we want done in the world. And I think the way he's treated our allies, whether it be Canada, whether it be many of the NATO allies, has also been very unhelpful. So look, you take the rough with the smooth with Donald Trump. I agree. I'm going to call, or to mix metaphors, you call balls and strikes, right. And that's I think my job as a journalist, rather than to be a kind of a cheerleader.
I believe you. I agree with you, because I've had hesitation. I've expressed hesitation on the tariffs in particular. And then you mentioned Canada. There's things that have happened even with that ally that have been very confusing to me, given the support that we have, certainly from some of these other nations. So I'm with you on that. Hey, before I let you go, you want to say anything about maybe the next communist mayor of New York City?
Can't make up my mind. People can't seem to make up their mind whether we're going to face. I'm in New York City. Whether we're going to face Marxism or Sharia law under the next the likely next mayor. Look, I think that Andrew Cuomo was a terrible candidate. Andrew Cuomo was governor of New York during COVID, and his decisions resulted in needless deaths. He resigned. He was then later forced to resign in scandal. And the idea that he was the sort of shoe-in, as the pundit class seemed to think he was, and the Democratic leadership seemed to think he was, for the Democratic nomination for mayor was always madness. And I think large numbers of people voted yesterday or in the last week or whenever they voted for this guy Mandani because they didn't want Andrew Cuomo. Now, unfortunately, they may find themselves stuck with a far left, anti-Zionist, pro-Palestinian mayor. But I think we'll see. We've got another 4 months till the general election itself. Normally, the Democratic candidate, is the strong favorite for that election. But there could be, there could be a surprise this time. What's happened? And I'll just finish with this, Mike, is that, because I know you've not got much time. Is that again, Andrew Cuomo was not popular. This guy Mandani came from nowhere and was seen as very quickly as the main alternative to Cuomo, and so a lot of people voted for him. But Mandani's received very little scrutiny. Mandani's received more scrutiny in the last 12 hours than he received in the previous 6 months. And so over the next 4 months, as we come to the general election, he's going to get a lot more scrutiny. His views on Israel and his views on, eliminating prisons and eliminating the police and establishing city-run grocery stores, God help us, like the city-run DMV and all this kind of stuff. His ideas are going to get a lot more scrutiny. And I wonder, frankly, whether they're, even in a far left crazy Democratic city like the one I live in, whether they're really going to stand up to that kind of stuff.
Well, you would hope so, because that they wouldn't stand up. But you would hope that there's going to be some, more of a microscope. But look, from the middle of the country, we weren't following this very closely. And I, to your point, just kind of discovered a lot of the interesting details about this guy Mandani. But good luck with that. Andrew Cuomo's still talking about maybe running as an independent. So he's kind of out there thinking these false hopes that maybe in the shoes of Anthony Weiner, we can say. Remember Anthony Weiner? His name comes to mind in this moment. Him? Yeah, exactly.
Who could forget? Yes, another great. New York produces all these fantastic politicians, doesn't it?
Jerry, awesome to have you on again. I hope all is well and you're having a great summer.
Thanks.
All right, take care.
Thanks, Mark.
We'll see you.
Bye-bye.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
We've got some volume out there on eastbound 64 as you head toward Clarkson. In fact, it slowed to the west there in both directions. But then eastbound traffic lines up again between Lindbergh and Big Bend. Westbound traffic, a slow go, Kings Highway out through McCausland. Slow-moving traffic southbound on 170, headed for 64. 270 southbound from Page through Doherty Ferry. We still have a jam westbound Manchester right at 141 tonight. It's really slow. So is southbound Lindbergh, headed for Concord. 55 southbound. Looks like just the usual volume, a little slow there at Bates. 44 is slowing in front of the Arch grounds. And there's some volume now westbound on the Poplar Street Bridge. This report brought to you by Jerry Kelly Heating and Air Conditioning. I'm Sue Thomas, and that's traffic on 97.1 FM Talk.
You know, this guy who won the Democrat primary in New York City that no one really had ever heard about until the last couple of days. I wasn't dialed into this. We just talked about it with Gerry Baker a little bit. He is scary kooky.
Jeez.
And you know what? He could win this thing. And we're going to get into some of the kookiness coming up next.
While you might not give a hoot about this week's space launch, you sure as sunshine care when your AC goes down. Well, good news, a Jerry Kelly per-producing tune-up is just 98 smackers right this very moment. $98.
JerryKelly.com. Another RX watch, brought to you by Onder Law.
There's an evil new twist in the tragic story of baby powder and its link to ovarian cancer. Recently uncovered documents reveal that talc can contain asbestos.
The same asbestos that we know causes mesothelioma.
Right, and ovarian cancer.
In the 1970s, the industry wrote its own rules, allowing Johnson & Johnson to claim that its talc was asbestos-free, as long as it contained less than 1% asbestos.
Of course, Johnson & Johnson helped write those rules. So while we're using hazmat suits to remove the asbestos from our homes, Johnson & Johnson was telling women it's safe for their bodies.
Unbelievable. So if you've used talcum powder for feminine hygiene and contracted ovarian cancer, call Onder Law at 1-800-RX-WATCH.
They've already won several large verdicts against Johnson & Johnson for women just like you.
Call Onder Law at 1-800-RX-WATCH. That's 1-800-RX-WATCH or go to rxwatch.com.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements.
You're listening to Leaf Filter Radio, and the guru of gutter protection himself, Chris Coonahan, is here to take your most pressing leaf-related questions.
Hey, everybody, Chris here. I understand we have Ron on the line. Ron, where are you calling from?
Uh-oh. Ron, are you calling from a ladder?
Well, I was. I wanted to ask Chris what I need to do to get my gutters ready to have Leaf Filter installed.
Oh, Ron, you don't have to do anything. A Leaf Filter Trusted Pro will come out and clean out your gutters, realign and seal your gutters, and install Leaf Filter, America's #1 gutter protection system.
So I didn't need to get on this ladder?
Ron, Leaf Filter Trusted Pros are in your neighborhood and ready to help. Just visit leaffilter.com/radio to schedule your free gutter inspection and get up to 30% off.
Thank goodness. What was that site?
That's leaffilter.com/radio for your free gutter inspection today. See representative for warranty details. Promotion is 20% off plus a 10% senior or military discount. One discount per household.
Hi, my name is Christina Straight, the owner of Straight Realty, and I'm asking you, what do you want in a realtor? Do you want experience? I've been a broker for over 21 years. Do you want to know how much I've sold? I've sold over $500 million, yes, $1 billion with a B, in sales. Do you want value? I now list properties for only 2%. So, if you're looking for all these things and want the best, then call me 314-441-4444. Why pay more than $2? You can also listen to my podcast on my website, straightrealty.com.
Commissions are not regulated and unnegotiable. Straight Realty is a licensed broker in the state of Missouri.
Well, his name is Zoran Mamdani, and most of us are just learning his name unless you lived in New York City, and he just won the Democrat primary for the mayor of the biggest city in America.
Tonight, we made history. We have won because New Yorkers have stood up for a city they can afford. And it's where the mayor will use their power to reject Donald Trump's fascism.
So that was kind of his thing, Donald Trump's fascism. Andrew Cuomo got into this race, you know, the former governor who embarrassed himself in the aftermath, certainly, of Cuomo. At first, when Cuomo gets in there, my understanding is he started talking about common sense things, Sue, like, you know, cleaning up the subways and the streets, not being partisan. But his team dropped that because this guy was caught catching fire, Mamdani, and he's 33 years old. He just got 43% of the first choice vote in a 9-candidate election in which more than 1 million New Yorkers participated in. By the way, that's the highest primary turnout in 36 years. I want to get into more of that in a second, but listen to this and tell me if this makes sense. I meant to ask Brian Kilmeade about this earlier. So it wasn't people of color that gave him the victory. If you look at Hispanic or Latino of any race, Mamdani got 30% of the vote. Andrew Cuomo got 50% of the vote. White or Caucasian, 35%, almost 36% for Mamdani. Andrew Cuomo got 25%. Black or African American. Again, Cuomo gets 44% of the vote. Mamdani gets 20% of the vote. This is the one that throws me. I don't even have a theory on it, so I want to look into it. 16% of Asian people voted for Andrew Cuomo. 58% of Asian people voted for Mamdani. Now, I don't know what the vote totals were on the demographics, so that might play into this. Maybe it was a smaller population of Asians, and that's why the numbers are off. Other races, 40% for Andrew Cuomo,
Mark.
29% for Mamdani. So basically, it was the white people who put him in this position.
A city-run grocery store this man is talking about?
Okay, listen to all of it.
And our police force should not be assisting ICE.
Defund the NYPD and refund all of these different social services.
I will create a network of city-owned grocery stores. It's like a public option for produce. I'll freeze the rent for millions of tenants, make buses fast and free, and deliver universal childcare. And before you ask, I'll pay for it by taxing the rich. The mayor will use their power to reject Donald Trump's fascism.
So John Podhoretz over at commentary.org, he's a pundit who's been around for a long time, broke this down a little bit. And some of the stats here and the things that he points out are rather interesting. Next to Keith Ellison, who is in Minnesota, he's run for attorney general twice and won. He got more votes in the primary than any Muslim candidate has ever received in the U.S. And while John says he ran on affordability and did not make his anti-Israel obsession, which, by the way, is clear. It's centerpiece of his campaign. He didn't really do that. But he's running in the most Jewish city in America, and he's pretty anti-Semitic. He opened the student chapter for justice in Palestine at Baldwin, which is one of the schools in New York City. So what Podhoretz says is, to put it simply, and again, I'm catching up on this. We talked about this with Kilmeade. We talked about it with Gerry Baker. But this guy, I didn't know really much about it. We've been talking about Trump and all these other things, not the mayor of New York City, where Andrew Cuomo, I don't even think was expected to win, but I don't think he was expected to lose by this much at this point. John says he won because of October 7th, which means he's the encampment candidate. He's the Free Palestine candidate. He is the globalized, the Intifada candidate. He emerged from the pack because that was his secret sauce. He's a foreign-born Muslim who rose from the ranks of the anti-Israel movement of the 2010s, laid the groundwork for the explosion of anti-Semitism in America over the past 20 months. He describes him as smart and articulate, able and impressive. He's also an implicit celebrator of anti-Jewish violence and anti-Semitic evil. He said he would have Bibi Netanyahu arrested if Bibi came to New York City. He didn't moderate his views or his positions as he ran for office because they were good for him financially and electorally. He raised a lot of money. The Bernie Bros. Again, these are the white young people who vaulted this guy into this position. Now, you remember who Curtis Sliwa was? You don't know his name, do you?
I don't know.
You do. Here's why.
Okay.
Remember in the 80s, they had this thing called the Guardian Angels.
Oh, that's right. He ran that.
He ran that, and he became very popular. He's also been a radio talk show host, but he's been a perennial candidate for mayor, and he's a Republican.
You need to be able to motivate people. Look, fault him as you will. You keep throwing stuff at him, you just strengthen him with millennials. We have to bring the millennials to us. Wasn't Trump able to do that with male millennials?
Yep.
And that probably was part of his pathway to victory. We have to start doing that now in New York City, and I'm the only one to do that.
He's not going to win. There's no way a Republican's going to win. So where you have Jamal Bowman in New York and Cori Bush right here in St. Louis kicked out of office because of their conduct for a variety of reasons. But look, a lot of it was because of the Jewish vote, because of their conduct after October 7th. Now in the most important election of this year, progressive white voters in New York City are showing they're on the march, and that's their standard bearer. This is a guy who is openly, as you heard in the cuts, wanting to defund the police. He wants to end incarceration. He wants to put homeless beds in subway stations, right? Some of this stuff is nuts. He wants to end the gifted and talented programs in middle schools. He wants to kill the test that he took, a citywide test that is something that helped him get into school. So all of these things, and he doesn't care about attacks on Jews. If there are encampments at Columbia University or on other college campuses, he will root that on. This guy is super dangerous. Now, it looks like the only person who can stop him is Eric Adams, who is the current mayor, because he's running as an independent. He's going to get a lot more closer look under the microscope, but he is scary. You think Tashara Jones was scary in St. Louis? Good Lord. He's Tashara Jones and AOC on steroids.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
On the Illinois side, we've got a jam southbound Route 3 at Monsanto Avenue. 44 back on the Missouri side is slowing as you head into the depressed section right in front of the Arch grounds. There was an accident westbound 6440 at Kings Highway on the right side. That caused a delay. Drivers headed into downtown for a game tonight. Cubs are still here, yes. And eastbound 40 is lined up. It's just approaching Lindbergh to 170, and then it looks better. Southbound 270, slow pockets from Page down through Doherty Ferry. Westbound Manchester is really jammed at 141 tonight. Out west, 70 and 6440 are slowing at their merge. And an accident reported westbound 364 near Pittman Hill Road. This report brought to you by Siding Express. Transform your home with the beauty and durability of James Hardie Siding. At Siding Express, they specialize in James Hardie siding installation. Visit sidingexpress.com today to schedule a free consultation. Sidingexpress.com. I'm Sue Thomas, and that's traffic on 97.1 FM Talk.
Jeff Rainford's coming up to talk about the dwindling population in the city of St. Louis and how that might affect the region. And he did not give me permission to use him in an ad, but I'm going to do it anyway because I'm going to talk about Generac home standby generators from Generator Supercenter here in St. Louis. And Jeff was one of the people. He was literally walking in the door of 97.1 FM Talk when he got a call from his wife, and his home was damaged because of the tornado. He had power that was out for a week. So don't be in a position like that. Luckily, everyone was safe and they survived. His wife and the dogs, everything's okay, got back in after a week. But look, we know it doesn't have to be a tornado. By the way, did you see it raining like crazy?
Yes.
I looked out a few minutes ago. It's pouring. Now it's sunshine. But we could have severe weather. We could have it this week. That could knock the power out. You don't want that to happen when it's 100 plus degrees. It could happen in the winter. It's happened in different neighborhoods where you get the power out for long stretches. And then you hear people kind of kick in with the portable generators. Those don't really do the trick. All right. These are very high quality Generac home standby generators, and you can get a free estimate right here in St. Louis at Generator Supercenter. They're the nation's #1 Generac generator dealer. Give yourself peace of mind. Call for the estimate. How much would it hurt? You've been thinking about it. Don't be the person that has to wait on hold calling Ameren. You don't have to worry about a fixed down line or a blown transformer or the power grid failure, which certainly is going to happen. A lot of people are going to say, man, why didn't I listen and get a generator? A free estimate is available. Financing is available. 314-499-2020. Generator Supercenter of St. Louis.com.
Here's a great deal for the month of June. Upgrade your backyard right now with Chesterfield Fence and Deck. Mention my name, Mark Cox, and you'll get 20% off your next project. That's how it works from the great company that's been around since 1968. You're going to love working with them. Fantastic installation crews. You need to go check out their showroom. It's in Chesterfield. Beautiful displays down there of their fences, their decks, their pergolas and sunrooms, the screen rooms, patios, and more. You can check out that maintenance-free decking material they have, which is absolutely beautiful, and you don't have to worry about taking care of it every couple of years. Of course, they do steel and chain link fences as well, if that's what you're looking for. Financing options are available at 0% interest, and they do free in-home estimates at no obligation to you, even free project design. Be sure and check them out today and tell them Mark Cox sent you. It's ChesterfieldFence.com.
Hi, I'm Bob Kershaw with Retirement Advisory Group. Are you worried about market volatility? Are you concerned your money won't last you through retirement?
Hi, I'm Tammy Kershaw, and as a family-owned business, we are committed to protecting your retirement, whether you're nearing retirement or already retired. We have a lot of folks that aren't aware of all the new investment choices that are available, which give you growth and protection from losses at the same time. Are you aware of all the fees that you are currently paying? We can show you how to avoid those fees. So come in now for your free retirement review and get a second opinion on your retirement plan. And just for coming in, you'll get a copy of our latest edition book, Your Key to a Worry-Free Retirement. Let us show you how to retire with confidence.
We are proud to say we haven't lost a penny of our clients' money in 39 years, and we won't lose a penny of yours either. Let our family help your family. Call us now at 314-993-9494 or go online to retirementkey.com. That's retirementkey.com.
It's time for a $98 AC tune-up.
And this portion of the show is sponsored by our friends at Jerry Kelly Heating and Air.
You're listening to The Mark Reardon Show on 97.1 FM Talk.
We have audio cut of the day coming up here in just a few minutes. And yeah, so you referred to the Cardinals and Cubs. It's a 4-game series. So game 3 tonight. We're hoping you can win one more game. You win the series. It'd be awesome to have a sweep. Last night, the last few nights have been phenomenal. I get to watch the game tonight. I've been preoccupied. I had the swim meet on Monday, and I had a client dinner last night at Fleming's. I had a really good steak. It was awesome.
Yum.
But I'm going to pay attention to the game tonight for sure. So I saw this story in the Post on Monday, and it reminded me of a dinner conversation that I had with my next guest. The story said a growing number of civic and business groups are highlighting the metropolitan area's stagnant population as an urgent problem, and they're pushing the region's planning organization to do something about it. And they go on to say backers of the effort say they have so far secured a dozen resolutions from professional associations and civic organizations asking the East-West Gateway Council of Governments to coordinate a plan that both puts population growth at the center of the regional agenda and recommends steps to reverse its stall. I'm very pessimistic about an opportunity to reverse this, but it was really a conversation that was in depth at a dinner that I had with my next guest, Jeff Rainford, the former chief of staff for Mayor Slay. When we were out just a couple of months ago, Jeff, we were talking about this very issue in economic development, and I was left with a lot of questions and not a lot of answers. And I'm sure you saw the story from Monday. I mean, how can you be optimistic about turning some of this around?
Well, first of all, I sort of take the approach, I'm neither optimistic nor pessimistic. It's a necessity. We just have to do it. I mean, we have to try.
Well, I don't disagree with that.
I can't, the people who are in charge of this can't promise anything, but I will say this. We are at a point in the region and are at a point in the city where little dinky half measures just aren't going to work. And we sort of have this habit in St. Louis. We love to study stuff, and we love to sort of take steps and hold big news conferences with big announcements of nothing. I mean, we have to both get the fundamentals right, and the fundamentals are we have got to make St. Louis safe. Right. We have got to have better educational opportunities, especially in the city and in the inner suburbs. We've got to get tax policy right. The earnings tax and the state income tax are killing us. And we've got all these duplicated governments. When anybody would want to come to town and say, hey, I want to talk to whoever's in charge of St. Louis, if you're talking about the region, they don't know who to talk to. You can go to Greater St. Louis, but Greater St. Louis, isn't the city and the county. You go to the county and the city's not involved. And so, the days where maybe we'd be like, well, let's offer a bunch of internships to St. Louis kids so they stay in St. Louis. Those kind of half measures are not going to work anymore. I think we're going to have to both be, when I say bold, that doesn't necessarily mean big. I mean, making downtown St. Louis safe should not be bold, but it is. But it's also not big. That's something that is achievable. There are alternatives to the St. Louis public schools, charter schools, and the like. We got to finally get serious about tax policy. And and the other thing about St. Louis and why it's not growing is we don't get our fair share of immigrants, and we can all argue over illegal immigrants, and we can all argue over criminals coming into the country. But there are other places that are getting legal, a lot of legal immigrants, and they're growing that way. we kind of got a confluence of nothing. We're really not doing anything particularly well when it comes to growing.
So this is where the new mayor really has to step up and be a leader here. And I don't know where, because I'm not criticizing her. She's dealing with tornado damage and all these other things, but where is that going to come from? And how do you actually can't flip a switch, right? One of the things I found interesting in the story is they said, and this surprised me, they said a lot of the interest in this issue is coming from St. Charles County businesses and governments, because the quote was their growth has now slowed to a trickle. They see it coming. They want to do something about it. But in the city, one of the issues to address, and we talk about this even on the roundtable, Jeff, is why should persons in St. Charles County or in Baldwin or in Fenton, where I live, why should they care about the population dwindling in the city of St. Louis? Why does that matter? We don't care.
Right. So there's two problems here. Number one is a lot of our reputation nationally comes from what happens in the city. And a lot of that is very positive. We're the chess capital, not only of the country, but maybe of the world. We have one of the great art museums. Our baseball team and our hockey team often, are national sources of pride. We do have a lot of great things in the city of St. Louis, but we also, unfortunately, we have crime. It seems like once a year we have just some heinous crime downtown that makes national news and just scares the bejesus out of people. And the other thing is that there are a few communities where the center is hollowed out, but the suburbs are so magnificent that the region is growing, but there aren't very many of them. But I will also say that while the city has certainly been on the wrong track, and that's bad for the region's not killing it either.
Yeah.
St. Charles's growth is largely at the expense of the city of St. Louis and St. Louis County. It's not like St. Charles has brought in 100,000 people from New York City or from Austin, Texas, or from Denver, Colorado.
True.
They're just getting people who are fed up with the city and the county. So the region's not killing it either. And I think everybody's got a role. You mentioned the mayor. Government's got to do what government does. So that's crime, that's schools, that's tax policy, that's getting rid of all of these multiplicative jurisdictions. It's doing crime together. There's a new crime training center, the regional crime training center that's coming together. And then the civic and business community and the labor community and folks like me, we have a role to play too, which is probably involving, the broader idea of what do we want to focus on as a region to grow. I don't think we should focus on 100 things. We could focus on being the coolest place to be a woman entrepreneur and try to get women to stay here and move here. Or it could be immigration, or it could be young people. It could be the fact that we have a really, really affordable cost of living here, but people also make a lot of money. I mean, you can get affordability in Jackson, Mississippi, but you also don't make much money. Here, it's affordable and you can make money. So I do think the government has to be bold. The business community has to demand certain things from the government, which means they're going to have to do things like say, I know it's not popular to put more cops downtown, but you got to put more cops downtown. It's an existential threat. And there are other things I think the business community can do as far as being focused, but I don't think little dinky things are going to work. I think we're going to have to be maybe not big, but we are going to have to be bold.
Yeah, and I don't see where that's going to come from. They're not really going to criticize Kara here because maybe Kara is capable of being bold. I do not see this current board of aldermen and certainly Megan Green as the president as someone who can lead us into the future. But let's talk about young people. You have a daughter who does not live here in St. Louis. I have two adult children who did not want to live in St. Louis. Now, my son in Houston, who's got the baby, my grandchild, he's concerned about the schools down there. He knows that he can get back here into the suburbs with, good schools and an affordable cost of living. But his girlfriend has family down there. So it's very complicated. But how do you appeal to young people and make them want to stay in our region?
So the one thing is that naturally there are other places that have natural advantages, like my daughter's in Denver. We just aren't going to ever have mountains. We are not going to have the outdoor activities they have. She just loves the what she does when she's not working. But the places like Austin, Texas, and Nashville, and other places, and places that have oceans and lakes and mountains, they have advantages that we don't. It will take if our strategy as a region, and again, the governments still have to do all those things I talked about. But if our strategy as a region is we're going to focus on making this the coolest place in America for young people, well, then the first thing I think we probably ought to do is talk to young people. You shouldn't ask a 65-year-old former chief of staff, how to make St. Louis cool for young people. But there are things that we can do if they were knitted together and focused and sold and marketed and that kind of thing. If that's what we chose to make the thing,
And, that takes leadership too. And so like, if we just decided one day we're going to make a St. Louis, which I think we actually have some things that if you couldn't afford to live in Denver because it's expensive, you can't afford to live in Silicon Valley or some of the other places because they're expensive. We can get people to live here if we knit together all of the cool things that we have and we market it and we make that a thing. If you did that, along with us doing, at least being competitive nationally and getting immigrants, that would actually, along with the government getting its part right, that would actually be a path forward where, at least you could stem the loss, if not actually start, having some growth.
Yeah, look, I love Missouri. I love St. Louis. I love the region. I don't plan on leaving. Maybe when I retire, I'd go out to the desert, but I'm very pessimistic about the future of growth. And, we'll continue to talk about it. I appreciate you jumping on here this afternoon. I know you're going to be on the roundtable soon. We'll talk about it on the roundtable this week, but man, I wish I could be more glass half full on this topic. I just don't see the leadership, Jeff.
Hey, Mark, so let me just say this about what you just said.
Quickly.
Really quickly. We always had to say in the mayor's office, don't let a good crisis go to waste. We're going to hit rock bottom at some point, and it's going to be bad. And when it does, we need to then use that as the way to get people to spur them to action.
Yep.
All right. Hey, Rainford, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Audio cut of the day is coming up.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
We've got an accident eastbound 70 past Bermuda. Watch for that in the left lane. And crews are still on the scene of the accident westbound 364 at Mid Rivers Mall Drive. Now, if you are headed to the game tonight, we've got eastbound 64 with some volume on either side of Clarkson and then between Lindbergh and Big Bend. And that's jammed up southbound 170. And eastbound 70, that accident past Bermuda has caused a delay behind it back past 170. Some volume on the Illinois side, westbound on the Poplar Street Bridge. And then, of course, road work eastbound 5570 between 255 and 159. That's causing delays as usual. This report brought to you by New Perspective Senior Living. New Perspective Weldon Spring is redefining senior living. Modern apartments, delicious meals, activities, entertainment, and a state-of-the-art AI fall detection system. Visit npseniorliving.com to schedule a tour today. I'm Sue Thomas, and that's traffic on 97.1 FM Talk.
If you need any masonry work here in St. Louis, there's really only one place to turn. That's Morelli Tuck Pointing. They've been around for decades. It's a family-owned and operated business, and they can help you with all kinds of things. Tuck pointing, spot pointing with color match, chimney repair, brickwork, stone foundation repair, waterproofing, and caulking. And they do it in an expert way. And you can kind of feel it if you go to the website. Now, I've known John and Cindy Morelli for a long time. They've been great sponsors of mine. Read some of the reviews up on the website at morellituckpointing.com. Consistently, and you can't promise this because when a project is bid upon and you say, all right, here's the time period. But one of the things I always consistently see in the reviews is they exceed expectations. Something's going to be taking 4 weeks. Well, maybe it's done in 3.5 weeks. Again, I'm not promising that. I'm saying that the customers of Morelli will say, hey, we're happy that the crew arrived very quickly. They did a great job. They kept the customers notified. They cleaned up after them. Highly, highly recommend Morelli Tuck Pointing. It's very consistent. I can do it because I know them. If you need work in this particular area, unfortunately, I think some people need work because of the tornado. They're experts here in the St. Louis area. That's why we call them the masonry specialists, and they've been around for a long time. 314-645-1387. There's a website up there, morellituckpointing.com. The email address is very easy too, morellituckpointing@gmail.com. Audio cut of the day is coming up next.
When you're approaching retirement, there are a lot of questions to answer. Do you have enough money to fund your income for life? How should you claim Social Security? And what's your plan for health care and long-term care? Hi, I'm Eric Robert, Director of Investments with the ClearPath Wealth Management Group at Stifel and host of On the Money Saturday mornings at 11 on 97.1 FM Talk. Don't leave your retirement to chance. It's crucial to understand and address relevant risks before you retire. Our team can help you get organized, guide you through critical retirement decisions, and create an investment portfolio designed around your needs. To schedule your free retirement plan consultation, go to clearpathinvesting.com. That's clearpathinvesting.com, or call us at 636-695-2650. That's clearpathinvesting.com or 636-695-2650. Stifel Nicholas and Company Incorporated, member SIPC and NYSE.
And now, a no-frills ad brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Here it is. You could save big when you bundle your home and auto with Progressive. That's it. See? Just a good old-fashioned, straightforward ad. See if you could save at Progressive.com.
The Mark Cox Morning Show.
According to AI, Kim, St. Louis ranks 8th now. We dropped.
What?
We're still in the top 10.
For herpes?
It says no for STDs.
Oh, okay.
The Mark Cox Morning Show. Weekdays from 5 to 9.
Man, you don't want to drop out of the top 10, but we were number 1 in that particular area. I think that's the reference there from the Mark Cox Show this morning. All right, so CNN runs with this story last night with the headline, exclusive, early U.S. intel assessment suggests strikes on Iran did not destroy nuclear sites, sources say. And they go on to say the assessment, which has not been previously reported, was produced by the Defense Intelligence Agency, the Pentagon's intelligence arm. It is based on battle damage assessment conducted by U.S. Central Command in the aftermath of the strikes. Now, President Trump in the Netherlands here at meeting with NATO members did not take kindly to that at all today.
When I saw them starting to question the caliber of the attack, was it bad? Well, it was really bad. It was devastating. They were obliterated. Like you can't get into the tunnels. There's no way you can even get down. The whole thing is collapsed in a disaster. And I think all of the nuclear stuff is down there because it's very hard to remove. And we did it very quickly. And they also knew we were coming. So I don't think too many people want to be down there knowing we're coming with the bunker busters, as we call them. We can't forget our submarine, which was out there. Submarines, actually. But submarine was out there. We shot 30 rockets into an area, every single one of them. I think it was almost 400 miles away, I think, Pete, right? 400. Every single one of them hit within 9 inches from where it was supposed to be. It took out a lot.
So you know what I did? I always play that audio cut of the day sounder. I forgot to do that today.
I wondered.
I rarely don't do that, but this serves as audio cut of the day. So he really got into it here with several members of the media, including Kelly O'Donnell at NBC News and Caitlin Collins from CNN.
Oh, fake news, CNN? Oh, yeah. Here we go. Wait till you hear this question.
Thank you, sir.
You should really say how great our soldiers and our warriors are.
I think everyone appreciates our soldiers and our warriors. I do have 2 questions for you, Mr. President. You just cited Israeli intelligence on these attacks. Earlier, you said U.S. intelligence was inconclusive. Are you relying on Israeli intelligence for your assessment of the impact of the strikes?
No, this is also Iran made the statement. And it's also, if you read the document that was given, that Pete can talk about if you'd like, the document said it could be very severe damage, but they didn't take that. They said it could be limited or it could be very severe. They really didn't know, other than to say it could be limited or it could be very, very severe. And you didn't choose to put that because it was very early after. Since then, we've collected additional intelligence. We've also spoken to people who have seen the site, and the site is obliterated.
Yeah, let me tell you, that got a little hot and Trump was worked up. So was Pete Hegseth and Secretary of State Rubio. But again, CNN runs with their instinct in the New York Times saying, oh, this did not work as well as sold. I would be the first to admit that I want to see what the ROI is on this. But I do think it's a little too early. And the Israelis say it worked quite well. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 3.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
Accident on westbound 364 at Mid Rivers. Watch for that in the left lane. And there was an accident earlier eastbound 70 past Bermuda, also in the left lane, that created a little bit of a delay through there. If you are headed into downtown for tonight's game, eastbound 64 kind of lines up Lindbergh in pockets through Big Bend, and then it looks a little bit better. And there's volume westbound on the Poplar Street Bridge. On the Illinois side, that road work and the closure of eastbound 5570 between 255 and 159 is also causing a delay. I'm Sue Thomas, and that's traffic on 97.1 FM Talk.
I want to talk about Banner Construction and the great work that they do here in St. Louis. They've been doing it since 1993.